Hello, and welcome to another video. This is the third episode of the story, in which Jiraiya finds his 10-year-old godson not being cared for. After returning from one of his missions, Jiraiya decides to take Naruto and train him. How will things change? Please like and subscribe to show your support. Now, let us begin. The next few days were great for Naruto and Hinata. They would sneak around just so they could talk or have a make-out session. Staying in their assigned room was just too boring, so they would find a secluded place in the tower instead. Shino didn't bother them, he understood why they were doing what they were doing. He kept to himself as he normally did, but he found himself covering for Naruto and Hinata whenever they weren't around and someone came looking for them. Naruto and Hinata were sitting in a rather unused portion of the tower. Hinata was sitting in Naruto's lap as they talked. "So Hinata, you told me you have a sister. Do you two get along?" Naruto asked. "Well, if this was a month ago, I would have said no, but recently, since we came back from our mission to the Wave Country, she's been more open. She occasionally asks me to do her hair or wants to go gardening with me," Hinata replied. "Well, that's good. I wish I had a sibling or some type of family. Don't you ever wonder who your parents were, Naruto-kun?" "When I was younger, I wondered all the time, sure, but it just hasn't been that important in the past few years. I'd like to know someday, but it really won't change anything when I find out." "I wouldn't be so sure," the giant fox mumbled. Naruto ignored the fox's words, thinking it was him just trying to be annoying again. "I wish the fox would stop bugging me, it always ruins the mood," Naruto mumbled. "You talk with it?" Naruto's eyes widened, he had that oh crap look on his face. "Well, sort of." "What do you mean sort of?" Naruto and Hinata looked behind them to see a small fox. The fox was a reddish color and only had a single tail. "It's so cute!" Hinata cried out happily. She quickly scooped up the fox and began to hug it. Hinata was hugging and squeezing the fox like it was some plushie. Naruto just stared at the fox, wondering what was going on. "Hinata, you know the fox that you're hugging to death is the Kyuubi, right?" Hinata looked at the fox she was just previously hugging the life out of. "Really? But he looks so cute. How can something like this hurt anyone?" The fox grumbled a bit. "No one takes a demon fox seriously anymore." How exactly are you able to come out on your own?" Naruto asked. "You changed more than just scenery when you altered my prison. Sadly, I can't do much with this body, nor can I do this that often. This body only has enough energy to set someone's pants on fire, then it would dissipate," the fox pouted, since he couldn't cause any real trouble. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "I said I could in so many words while you were doing that mission in the Wave Country. So why exactly are you coming out now of all times?" Naruto was upset because the fox was interfering with his Hinata-chan time. "Well, your lovey-dovey stuff was honestly getting on my nerves, so I decided to." The fox started to make a purring-like noise when Hinata began to rub his ears. Hinata started to giggle at the fox. Apparently, the fox liked his ears rubbed. "Naruto-kun, what's his name? I know people call him the Kyuubi, but he must have a actual name, right?" "Don't ask me. The fox never tells me much. My actual name would be Takeshi." "Now why exactly aren't you afraid of me, little girl?" "I don't think I could ever be afraid of something this cute looking." Takeshi sighed. She was right, no one would take him seriously looking like he did. Naruto had to admit he wasn't very threatening, he was basically a chibi version of his normal self and with only one tail like a normal fox. "Hinata-chan is right, you know, I never thought you were that bad even in your normal form, but this form is just saying, please pet me. I think it's about as threatening as a box full of kittens." Takeshi jumped at Naruto and bit down on his hand. Naruto ran around with Takeshi latched onto his hand by his teeth. Hinata started to laugh at their antics and the fact that Naruto was screaming, get it off," over and over again. Hinata walked over and grabbed Takashi, who let go of Naruto's hand. Maybe because he wanted his ears rubbed again? Hinata went back to petting the little chibi version of the nine-tailed fox. Kid, this one's a keeper, better not let her go. Both Hinata and Naruto blushed at what the fox had said. Naruto felt one of his clones disappear, telling him that someone was coming close to where they were, but it was Shino, so there wasn't anything to worry about. Shino's coming, so you might want to disappear for now, fuzzball. Takashi sighed and disappeared in a flash of red chakra. Shino came into the room a few minutes later to see Naruto and Hinata sitting next to each other. The second part of the exams has officially finished. They are waiting for us in the main room, Shino stated. Finally. Let's go, Hinata-chan. Naruto said happily. Hinata smiled and nodded. The three of them walked down the hallways until they came to the large room where all the teams were waiting. There were 15 other people standing in the center of the room. There were Teams 7, 9, and 10 along with Team Sabaku, their own team, and Kabuto's team as well. Those were the only teams that seemed to have passed the second round. Team 8 took their place behind everyone as the Hokage began to speak. Congratulations on completing the second part of the chunin exams. Normally, there aren't this many teams that finished the second round. Therefore we shall be holding preliminary fights to cut the number of passing to the third stage effectively in half, Hiruzen announced. Wait, so we have to fight or something? Naruto asked. Hiruzen looked at Hay-8, who coughed a bit before speaking up. You will each be randomly, chosen to fight. Teams, will be effectively dissolved at this, point. Everyone was thinking the same thing. Did they drag him out of the hospital for this? We will, begin in 10 minutes, so prepare yourselves. The rookie 9 found themselves chatting with one another about their experiences in the Forest of Death. So Shikamaru, how was the forest? Naruto asked. It was troublesome to say the least, Shikamaru replied. Naruto laughed and walked over to see how Team 7 was doing. Naruto noticed Sasuke and Sakura were standing a little closer than normal. Naruto walked over to Kiba and asked him what that was about. Yo, Kiba, something happened with Sasuke and Sakura out there? Naruto whispered. Kiba began to explain what exactly had happened. Flashback: Team 7 had just been ambushed by some San Genin. Sasuke was fighting what seemed to be the leader of the squad. Kiba was fighting a rather portly Genin. He wasn't faring too well, considering he was the one that had gotten hit by the surprise wind jutsu that had initially separated them. Sasuke was currently in a taijutsu battle with the nameless San Shinobi. All the while, half of his attention was on Sakura, who was holding her own for now. Sasuke threw 2 kunai at the enemy shinobi in front of him. The nameless San Shinobi did the same and the 4 kunai hit each other in mid-air. Sasuke and his opponent rushed each other once again before the kunai even had the chance to hit the ground. Sasuke looked over at Sakura as he ran at his opponent. He saw Sakura hit the tree and fall limp to the ground. Sasuke clenched his teeth. For some reason, he wanted to save her. It wasn't even because he had to in order to complete the current part of the exams. She was annoying, she always hovered over him, like a moth does to flame, but he had actually grown to like it in the short time they had been appointed to Team 7. He wasn't quite sure what the feeling was, but he wanted to find out. Unbeknownst to Sasuke, his eyes began to change. When the ninja clashed once more, Sasuke was able to easily read and counter his moves unlike before. Sasuke and his opponent traded a few blows before Sasuke took out another kunai. He quickly swiped with his kunai, cutting his opponent's throat. Sasuke quickly turned to the ninja, slowly walking up to Sakura to end it. Sasuke flew through hand seals. Katan, Ryuka no Jutsu. The flames came forth and engulfed the ninja, turning him into little more than ash. Kiba was just finishing his opponent as well, Tsuga. Sasuke looked over to see Kiba's opponent being smashed into a tree. The sand ninja, now embedded into the tree, slowly fell out and onto the ground. Kiba recovered and went over to Sasuke to see how Sakura was. He was about to comment on how there was nothing left of one of the genin when Kiba noticed Sasuke's eyes. "Hey, Sasuke, your eyes. They're red now, with comma marks." End flashback. So he finally activated his Sharingan, eh? "Hey, Kiba, how about we play some pranks on those two after all this?" "Oh, I'm definitely getting involved in this." Naruto grinned and walked over to Sasuke. He was seriously going to enjoy bugging him about this until he talked. "So, Sasuke, I hear you got your Sharingan. What exactly triggered it?" "How should I know, moron?" Right, I heard all about the fight. Do you want to hear what I think?" Naruto had a mischievous grin on his face. Sasuke walked past Naruto while grabbing him by the collar of his shirt. "Don't you dare say anything," Sasuke said once they were far enough away from the group. "Where's the fun in that, team?" Sasuke grumbled and walked away. He knew he wasn't going to get anywhere with Naruto. He was either going to tell or not tell regardless of what he wanted. The 10-minute break had finally elapsed and Hayate began to talk about the rules, or lack thereof. "There really are no rules, but killing is frowned upon. Weapons of all kinds are allowed. If I deem the fight is, over, you will stop, or I will stop you." Just as Hayate was about to continue speaking, Jiraiya appeared in the room. "Hey, pervy sage. Did you come to watch the fighting?" "Exactly. I wouldn't miss my student kicking some ass," Jiraiya boasted proudly. Up in the stands, Kurenai was glaring daggers at him. Kakashi wrapped an arm around her waist and pulled her close, just in case she had the urge to try and jam a kunai in him. Kurenai blushed when she realized Kakashi had wrapped his arm around her. "As I was about to say, the first match will begin. Is there anyone who wishes to quit now?" Kabuto raised his hand. "Sorry, but I can't continue." Everyone just looked at him oddly but accepted it. Kabuto walked out of the room and down the hall until he was stopped by someone. "So, Kabuto, you're not going to play with the children?" "I have more pressing duties to complete for you, Orochimaru-sama." "Very well. Be sure to complete them." "As you wish." Orochimaru disappeared into the wall, leaving Kabuto to finish his assignments. The genin were currently walking up the stairs to where their Jounin sensei were waiting. Naruto and Hinata were the last two going up the stairs. Hinata was first, while Naruto was behind her. As they walked up the stairs it seemed like forever and the entire time he was staring at her but. "Damn, my Hinata-chan has a nice ass. Must touch," he thought repeatedly. Naruto refrained from doing so when he heard the fox laughing in his head. Takashi apparently found Naruto's realization to be highly amusing. "I knew I shouldn't have read those stupid books when I found them in Pervy Sage's room." Naruto grumbled. "Of course, once you read that sort of material, it's stuck in your head for life and you begin to think about things in a more perverted fashion." Hiruzen and Jiraiya sat up in the stands to watch how this would go. They hoped these matches would be enjoyable. The first names came up on the electronic board. It was Shino Aburame vs Yoroi Akado. Would Shino Aburame and Yoroi Akado please step into the arena?" Hayate announced. Shino walked down the stairs towards the arena while Yoroi jumped off the ledge of the balcony into the arena. The two stood apart, waiting for the signal to begin the match. Yoroi was a large, muscular man with small dark glasses and a cloth covering the rest of his face. Shino looked physically inferior to the man in every way possible. But that meant nothing to the young bug user. Let the match between Shino Aburame and Yoroi Akado begin. Yoroi charged Shino, his hand stretched out, taking a swipe at him. Shino grunted a little, feeling some of his chakra being sucked out. Shino jumped back as far as he could. Interesting ability. Too bad you don't seem fast enough to use it properly, Shino stated, as he dodged the man's glowing hand several more times. Stop avoiding your inevitable defeat. Yoroi yelled. Or are you scared of something? Yoroi's comment fell on deaf ears. It would take far more than that to insult an Aburame. The entire time Shino had been slowly releasing his bugs all over the arena. Shino suddenly took out a kunai and took a swipe and Yoroi causing him to jump back. As I said, you're too slow to use your own moves effectively. Shino was just trying to make the man angry. It seemed to be working, as Yoroi began to charge again, this time, a little faster. He still fell short of trying to get to his opponent. Suddenly, an arm made of bugs came out of nowhere and smashed into Yoroi, knocking him to the ground. The bug arm dissipated in the air. Unbeknownst to Yoroi, a good deal of Shino's bugs had been deposited on him. What the hell was with that? I hate bugs. Yoroi charged once again but Shino didn't move. Right as Yoroi's hand was a few feet from his opponent, Shino quickly pulled out a kunai and stabbed it right through the palm of Yoroi's hand. Yoroi screamed in pain as he backed off and pulled the kunai out of him. Up in the stands Naruto and Hinata both shook their heads. That was the wrong thing to say around Shino. Do not insult the insects. Make me bug lover. A mass of insects from within Shino's clothes along with all the ones he had distributed throughout the arena appeared and surrounded Yoroi. You see, Yoroi, you had lost from the very beginning, as you need to get close to attack your opponent and siphon their chakra. I do not, Shino spoke in a disturbingly calm voice. Shino signaled the bugs and they engulfed Yoroi's entire body. Shino, that's enough. Recall your beetles. You are the winner of this match, Hayate called out. Shino recalled his bugs leaving a shivering Yoroi. He was bleeding all over from the beetles that had actually started to eat him. The medics came out and put him on a stretcher and quickly left the room to treat him. Once all of Shino's beetles had retreated back into his coat, he walked calmly back up to the stands to his team. Awesome Shino. You really got him good. Naruto shouted happily and patted him on the back. Hinata nodded in agreement with Naruto's words. Yes, excellent work Shino, Kurenai stated. The proctor coughed a bit and announced the next set of names that appeared on the board. Next match will be Rock Lee vs Choji Akimichi. Would you two make your way into the arena? I changed my mind, Asuma-sensei. I don't want to fight. Choji whined. Shikamaru looked down at Lee, who was already waiting for Choji in the arena. He hopped off the ledge and walked over to Lee and whispered something into his ear. But I don't want to call Choji fat, Lee replied. Apparently Choji only heard two words out of that whole statement, his name, and the word, fat. Choji looked like he had fire in his eyes when he turned to look at Lee. Shikamaru took this as his cue to get the hell out of the way. Choji jumped off the ledge. You called me fat, didn't you? Lee was about to say something in his defense but Choji started to charge him. Hayate sighed. He never even said for them to start, but at this point it really didn't matter. Choji's arm suddenly expanded 10 times its normal size, and took a massive swing at his opponent. Lee back flipped over the massive arm with great ease. Lee jumped at Choji to attack but was blocked by the massive arm. It can move far faster than I expected, Lee thought. Choji's other arm suddenly expanded and took another swipe at Lee, who kicked the arm away like it was nothing. The two stood far apart from each other, waiting for one of them to make a move. Choji was the first to make a move. He charged Lee with both of his oversized arms. He took a swipe at Lee, who dodged it easily, but Choji followed up with the other arm and hit Lee in mid-air. The hit looked like it hurt, but Lee easily recovered and landed on his feet several yards away from Choji. Damn, he's really fast, Choji thought. Choji's arms shrunk back down to their normal size. Suddenly Choji's body expanded until he looked like a giant meatball. His arms, legs, and head pulled inside and he began to spin. Choji barreled down on Lee in his current meatball tank form. Lee jumped to the side and Choji passed by. Lee watched as Choji really couldn't turn well in his current state. Choji finally made it around and came barreling down on Lee once again. This time, Lee stood there, waiting for Choji to get close. Just as Choji was about to crush his opponent, Lee delivered a massive kick to Choji, sending him flying into the wall, knocking him unconscious. Choji's team's eyes widened at the fact Choji's move was defeated so easily. Hayate went to go check on Choji. "Winner, Rock Lee," he announced. "Great job, Lee." Guy called out. "Thank you, Guy-sensei." Lee jumped back up to the balcony as the medic ninja came out to take care of Choji. The board lit up with 2 new names as soon as Choji had been taken from the arena. The 2 names that had come up were Kankuro and Misumi Tsurugi. Kankuro, and Misumi. "Tsurugi, please make your way to the arena floor," Hayate ordered. Misumi was a tall man, Kankuro only came up to his shoulders. Misumi wasn't a very muscular man like his partner was. He had brown hair and glasses. He also had cloth over his face just like his partner. "Finally my turn," Kankuro thought. The 2 jumped off the balcony ledges and into the arena. The 2 stood apart, waiting for the match to start. "I'd give up now if I were you," Misumi stated. Kankuro unstrapped the large thing on his back. "I'll say the same to you, Four Eyes," Kankuro shot back. The third match of the preliminaries begin. Misumi rushed Kankuro and tried to punch him. Kankuro easily blocked Misumi's fist, but suddenly, his whole arm turned to something like jello, and wrapped around Kankuro's arm. "What the?" The rest of Misumi did the same as his arm, and wrapped around the rest of Kankuro's body. Kankuro struggled to get free but to no avail. "You see, I can dislocate every bone in my body, and with my excellent chakra control, I can manipulate my body perfectly in this state. That's a nice trick. Is that it?" Kankuro taunted. "You're in no position to talk. I could easily break any bone in your body. For instance, I could break your neck." "Well, get it over with already. I don't have all day." Misumi snapped Kankuro's neck. Everyone but Kankuro's team and a few others were horrified. That was, until pieces began to fall off of Kankuro's face. The head spun around and looked Misumi in the face. "My turn. This is a puppet. He's a puppet master." Misumi screamed in his mind. Arms suddenly shot out from what was thought to be Kankuro's body, wrapped around Misumi, and began to squeeze the life out of him. Kankuro finally came out of the large bundle that had been dropped earlier in the fight. "I give up." Misumi screamed out, as the puppet was squeezing the life out of him. "How boring. You would be so much more flexible if you let me finish breaking all the bones in your body." Hayate decided to call the match. "Winner, Kankuro." The puppet dropped Misumi to the floor. The medics came out quickly and loaded Misumi onto the stretcher and carried him off to the medical ward. The next names appeared on the board. Naruto Uzumaki and Ino Yamanaka. Naruto and Ino each descended from the balcony and took their positions. They stood apart as they waited for the signal for the match to begin. All the older shinobi looked extremely nervous about this fight. None of the younger genin had any idea why though. "The only way I can win is if I can use my Shintenshin no Jutsu, but my dad said to never use that jutsu on Naruto." He never said why, though, Ino thought. Ino had heard from Sakura earlier today how well Naruto could fight. Naruto, on the other hand, had forgotten what the Yamanaka clan's specialty was. He was trying to think of what Jiraiya had told him, when the proctor had called for the battle to begin. Ino thought of only once chance to beat Naruto. She rushed Naruto in hopes she could get her jutsu off fast enough. Naruto watched as Ino rushed in doing a few hand signs. Naruto wasn't sure what she was trying to do, so he just got into a ready stance so he could properly defend. Mind transfer jutsu, she exclaimed. Naruto now realized what she was doing, but at that point, it was too late. All the genin except for Team 8 had thought Ino had just won, even the genius Shikamaru had thought this was a win for Ino. The Leaf Jounin in the room thought this turn of events was terrible and this match should have never gone through. Inside Naruto's mind, Ino appeared in a green field. In this seemingly endless field of green grass was a massive tree. She had never seen, read or heard of anything like this before. Out of all the things she had to read when learning the Yamanaka Jutsu, nothing like this had ever been mentioned. She looked around but saw nothing. She looked back the massive tree in front of her. She walked over to the tree in hopes of finding something familiar that she had read about in the Yamanaka books. As she got closer to the tree, she felt herself being watched. It was an odd feeling. Children should not be allowed to enter someone's mind without permission. Did you know if you die in this boy's mind, you will not return to your own body? Ino looked around frantically to find from where the voice was coming from. But the voice seemed to be coming from every place at once. Ino knew this wasn't Naruto. It was something else, something much larger than him. I should kill you right now for entering the little knucklehead's mind without permission, but he would get rather upset with me if I did. What are you? She screamed. Ino was officially freaked out. She had never experienced something like this before. Suddenly a massive figure landed behind Ino, shaking the ground and knocking her to the floor. I am the creature that once almost destroyed your village. Ino's eyes widened. She frantically began to back up while screaming. The fox just laughed manically as he inched closer to her. She got a hold of herself enough to cancel the jutsu. Naruto appeared once Ino had left. Why the hell did you keep me out, you son of a bitch? Naruto yelled. Because she needed to be taught a lesson, that's why. She's lucky I didn't end her existence right there. You shouldn't have done anything at all and let her figure out there was nothing she could do to actually control me with that jutsu. And you should have not spaced out and let her use it on you. In a sense, it's your own fault for this occurrence. Naruto sighed, and left his mind spaced to see if Ino was alright. Outside of Naruto's mind-scape, Naruto returned to reality just as Ino did. Ino screamed for a few seconds, then fell to the floor shivering like she had just seen the devil himself. Naruto looked down at the ground in shame while all the other genin were wondering what happened to Ino. Asuma appeared next to Ino and picked her up. At the moment, she was unresponsive. I'm sorry, Naruto. We should have never let this match proceed, Asuma said. Naruto said nothing as he walked by. He had a sad expression on his face, like everything had ended. Hayate finally got with it and called the match. Winner, Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto slowly climbed the stairs till he reached the top. He sat down on a bench near his team and just stared off into space. Hinata was going to go over and try and cheer him up, but Kurenai put a hand on her shoulder and shook her head. Leave him be right now, Hinata. Kurenai said. Hiruzen looked at Ino, who was still shivering. The young girl was not ready to face something like that. Asuma, please go and get Inoichi, Hiruzen stated. Asuma sighed. If we would have just called the match before this had happened, we wouldn't need to. You know as well as I do the council is just going to use this against the boy. Hiruzen looked over at Naruto, who looked very depressed. I'm afraid that is very possible. Asuma took Ino to the medical ward, then left to go retrieve her father to see what type of damage had been done. The first 4 matches for the prelims had ended, and the next 4 were about to begin. After the fight with Naruto and Ino, if it could be called a fight, had ended, it had put a hold for the moment on the rest of the exams. Naruto still sat in the same spot up in the balcony, staring at the floor. The other genin, minus his team, just stared at him, wondering what he did to Ino. The fact of the matter was that Naruto had nothing to do with that, but he was not about to tell them that. Naruto sighed, the match couldn't have gone much worse. Hayate coughed in an attempt to grab everyone's attention. The action seemed to work, as everyone turned their heads in his direction. The fifth match will begin now. Two names came up on the board: Shikamaru Nara and Sakura Haruno. They both descended the stairs to the arena. This was the type of distraction Naruto needed from his own problems. He got up off the bench and walked up to the railing to see the match. "Are you alright now, Naruto-kun?" Hinata asked softly. "Not really, but I'll be fine, I guess. It's Ino I'm more concerned about at the moment," he replied. "Will she be alright?" "Yeah. The fox only scared her, nothing more. I'm just wondering what she will think of me now." Hinata looked at Naruto, who was staring down at the match that was about to take place. She wanted to hug him and try and make him feel a little better, but that would definitely give away their current relationship that they have been trying to keep hidden. Kurenai sighed, they were definitely keeping up the act of not being a couple pretty well. What a mess, she thought. "Let the battle between the bookworm and the lazy genius begin," Naruto mumbled just before Hayate said anything to begin the match. He only said it loud enough for his teammates to hear. Kurenai couldn't help but laugh a little at Naruto's comment. Hinata giggled, but they were both silenced and they heard Shino laugh a little. All three of them just stared at him like the unspeakable had just happened. They turned their attention to the arena when they heard Hayate begin the match. "May the match between Shikamaru Nara and Sakura Haruno begin," Hayate announced. Shikamaru and Sakura stood still as they thought about which move to make. Shikamaru yawned. "Man, this is boring. Why did I have to fight a girl?" "What you say?" Sakura yelled. "She's noisy, too," he muttered. Sakura threw a kunai at him, she knew of the Nara jutsu. Shikamaru just sidestepped to avoid the kunai. Sakura weighed her options, she didn't have any ranged jutsu and he did. She was going to have to get close somehow. Well, standing here isn't going to help me, Sakura thought. Sakura ran at Shikamaru while creating several clones. The clones were really her only option at getting close. Shikamaru extended his shadow at one of the Sakura clones, but it wasn't the right one. He was able to do that 2 more times before she was too close. Shikamaru barely ducked under a punch. "She's faster than I thought she would be." Shikamaru ducked under one of Sakura's right hooks. She jumped back about a foot and created several clones and began to attack again. Shikamaru took out a kunai right before Sakura landed a punch on Shikamaru's face, knocking the kunai out of his hand. The kunai landed several feet behind Sakura, stuck in the ground. Shikamaru jumped back and extended his shadow toward Sakura. She easily jumped out of the way of the shadow. A few seconds later, she found herself unable to move. What? How? She thought. Her eyes widened in realization of what just happened. That kunai he dropped earlier was used to extend his shadow. "Well, that was more of a workout than I thought it would be," Shikamaru muttered. "So Sakura, do you concede, or do I have to knock you out or something?" Sakura sighed, she knew she had lost. "I concede." "So was the kunai something you planned?" "Yeah, although I wasn't too sure it was going to work." Winner of the 5th match, Shikamaru Nara. Shikamaru released his jutsu, allowing Sakura to move on her own power again. The two ascended the stairs and rejoined their teams. They didn't bother to talk on the way up. Sakura sighed, she was a little depressed she couldn't win her match. "Well, Sakura, that was pretty good," Kakashi said as he put away his little orange book he had been reading. "Thanks Kakashi-sensei," she replied. "Yeah, not bad," Sasuke mumbled. Sakura blushed at the Uchiha's words. She didn't say anything in return. She figured he would rather keep it that way since Kiba hadn't hurt him. Although, Kakashi had, and he eyed both of them when he heard Sasuke. Well, maybe Sasuke has finally gotten over some of his issues. I have to admit he was acting differently a few days before the exams, Kakashi thought. The electronic board came to life. The two names read Tenten and Sasuke Uchiha. Sasuke Uchiha and Tenten, please make your way to the arena floor, Hayate called out. Tenten jumped off the railing while Sasuke walked instead. Just as Sasuke was walking by Team 8, Naruto spoke up. Better not lose just yet, team. We still need to have a match, Naruto spoke without even turning around. Sasuke stopped just as he passed Naruto, and without even turning to look at him he spoke. Of course, Dobe, but I don't plan on losing to you when our match comes up. Kurenai looked at both of them. They were grinning like mad men. She was honestly a little scared by it. That particular match would definitely be something to see if Naruto was as good as Jiraiya claimed he was. Naruto never really revealed what Jiraiya had taught him. Sasuke continued to walk down to the arena after his short chat with Naruto. He now stood in front of a grinning Tenten. He couldn't help but wonder what she's thinking right now. So what are you so happy about? Well, I get to fight the famed Uchiha in a match and beat him. Why wouldn't I be happy, she replied. Sasuke activated his eyes. Well, show me what you got. Let the sixth match begin. Tenten jumped back instantly and threw a few shuriken. Sasuke took out a kunai and easily blocked them. Sasuke didn't know anything about the girl in front of him, so he would just have to react to what she threw at him. But if all she did was throw stuff at him, this match wasn't going to last long. Sasuke was slightly annoyed though by the cheering of her sensei and the one known as Rock Lee. Are those two always this noisy? Sasuke asked. Afraid so. Sometimes I wish they weren't so energetic. Now are you ready to fight? Sure, but I hope you can do more than throw stuff at me, he taunted. His taunt worked as she became extremely agitated. She charged him, throwing shuriken at mass as she got closer to him. Sasuke easily blocked or dodged them. Tenten pulled out two kunai and started to slash at him. Sasuke weaved in and out of her slashes and stabs with the kunai. Sasuke finally retaliated. He ducked under a slash to the face and kicked her in the gut, sending her flying a few yards back. Tenten coughed as she got back to her feet. She wasn't even able to touch him. Tenten smirked. She jumped into the air, taking out a few of her scrolls. Weapons began popping out all around her and she threw a hailstorm of sharp steel at the Uchiha. Sasuke dodged the hailstorm of weapons. He jumped away from them quickly, as he noticed the wire attached to each weapon. The weapons came to life. It seemed that Tenten was using her chakra in the thin metal wire to control the weapons. Now Sasuke, can you dodge all of this? Tenten asked, grinning from ear to ear. Sasuke smirked. Who knows, he said as he shrugged his shoulders. Tenten moved her hands, moving the weapons as well. The weapons all barreled down on Sasuke, but all he did was stand there. Sasuke smirked, and moved at the last possible moment as all the weapons struck at the place he had been standing. Sasuke flew through hand seals. Katan, Dragon Fire Jutsu, the stream of flames engulfed Tenten's weapons, turning them red hot along with the wire attached to them. The wire started to burn her hands. Tenten quickly detached the wires and jumped back. She took her eyes off Sasuke for only a second, but a second was too long. Sasuke appeared behind Tenten with a kunai placed against her throat and against the back of her neck. If she moved at all she would be killed. Well, it seems you lost, Sasuke said with a smirk on his face. Winner of the sixth round, Sasuke Uchiha. Hayate announced. The match between Sasuke and Tenten was flawless on Sasuke's part. Naruto only thought it was due to his Sharingan that he was actually able to dodge everything. If he didn't have it he would have at least gotten seriously hurt. Tenten sighed and walked back up the stairs with her head hung low, muttering, I couldn't even touch him," in a depressed tone. Sasuke walked a few feet behind her with a bored expression on his face. He walked back to the place on the railing next to his team to watch the next match. Sasuke's team congratulated him on his match. Soon enough the next two names popped up on the board. It was Hinata Hyuga against her cousin, Neji Hyuga. Naruto looked at Hinata, who was trembling a little. He never inquired about her own family before, but now he wishes he had. "Do your best, Hinata-chan," Naruto said loud enough for only her to hear. Hinata stopped her trembling and nodded towards Naruto, then made her way down the stairs. She was now determined to do her best. She took up a gentle fist stance as she prepared herself for Hinata to start the match. Up in the balcony, Naruto looked at Kurenai. She had an expression on her face that said she wasn't pleased with this fight at all. Naruto turned his attention back to the fight that was about to begin. Hinata had begun the match. Hinata stood in her gentle fist stance in order to guard herself from Neji's attacks. Neji, on the other hand, just stood there, hands at his sides, glaring at her. Neji started to grin all of a sudden. "You can't win. You must already realize this," Neji said in a matter-of-fact tone. "In all our past sparring sessions you were never able to beat me. I doubt you have gained the ability to challenge me in this short time. Give up now before I'm forced to harm you in this match." Hinata's response was to activate her Byakugan. "I've worked very hard since I became a part of Team 8. I will not disappoint him." "You speak of that failure?" "Heh, once a failure, always a failure, just like you, my dear cousin." Venom dripped from every word as Neji spoke. Neji activated his Byakugan and finally dropped into a gentle fist stance. Naruto was gripping the railing tight. Enough that he was leaving an imprint of his hands on it. He wasn't upset about the insults towards him because he had heard them before, but the insults towards Hinata were unacceptable. Kurenai put a hand on his shoulder in an attempt to calm him. It seemed to work, if only a little. The two Hyuga charged each other in a blur of motion. Hinata smoothly blocked Neji's strikes as they began what looked like an elaborate dance. The bursts of chakra that came from each blocked blow looked like they could really destroy things inside your body. Hinata seemed to be able to keep up with her cousin in this match of gentle fist users. Hinata bent back a full 90 degrees in order to avoid a blow from Neji. She instantly shot back up and landed a strike right in Neji's stomach. He grunted slightly and Hinata jumped back from him. She's faster than she used to be, but still not fast enough. Neji thought. Is that it? If so, you have already lost this match. Hinata was flexing her hands like there was something wrong with them. When she had heard her cousin's words, she lifted her sleeve to see a few small dots on her arms. They were chakra burns from where Neji was striking her tenketsu points. The jounin in the balcony were all surprised at Neji's level of skill when it came to the Byakugan. Very few members of the Hyuga clan were capable of seeing and hitting those points precisely, and even fewer were able to hit them like that in combat. Hinata looked up at Naruto for only a second, then dropped back into a gentle fist stance. "I will not give up this time, Nezen, regardless of what you say." Neji and Hinata began their elaborate dance once more as they continued the battle. Suddenly they both struck each other at the same time. A few seconds passed before Hinata coughed up some blood, but Neji seemed for the most part unaffected by her attack. Hinata shook off his devastating blow and tried to counter, but Neji blocked it and gave her another blow with both palms to the chest that sent her flying several feet back. Hinata slowly got to her feet again. You could see the blood coming out both sides of her mouth. She suddenly fell to her hands and knees, coughing up some blood. "Give up already. You know you can't win," Neji stated. Hinata got to her feet, wiping the blood away from her mouth with her jacket. "I will not cough, give up." Hinata took up her gentle fist stance once again. Naruto could only watch as Neji lunged at Hinata. Hinata struck at Neji, but he easily blocked the attack and gave her another devastating gentle fist strike to the chest. The strike sent Hinata back several feet. Pathetic. It was already destined that I would win, was all he said. Naruto watched in horror as Hinata was hit mercilessly. His hand was gripping the railing so hard that it began to crack under the pressure. Hinata somehow managed to get back to her feet once more. Pathetic? Nezen, take a good look at yourself and then tell me who's pathetic, she replied weakly. Neji's expression was filled with rage. He charged Hinata, both palms in a position to strike. He was going to end it. Everything looked like it was going in slow motion for Naruto as he watched Neji charge. Naruto looked at Hinata. She wasn't moving at all in any way to defend herself. She had passed out, standing up right after she had spoke. Naruto's eye widened. He quickly made a hand seal and disappeared from the balcony. Naruto appeared right in front of Hinata just as Neji was about to strike. Naruto took both palm strikes to the chest. Naruto felt the pain throughout his chest, but he stood firm, not even inching back from the blow. Kakashi, Guy, and Hayate had grabbed a hold of Neji. Although they would have been too late if Naruto hadn't stepped in. Kurenai had examined Hinata and was screaming for the medics. They rushed out and quickly took Hinata into the medical ward. She was in critical condition. The Jounin released Neji and Hayate called the winner. All the while Naruto stood unmoving with blood trickling out of his mouth. Suddenly Naruto released an immense amount of killer intent, so much, that even Gaara's demon fell silent. Naruto created a Rasengan and charged Neji only to be stopped by Jiraiya. Everyone in the entire room was wide-eyed at the jutsu Naruto had preformed. "Let me go, Jiraiya!" Naruto screamed as he tried to impale Neji with his Rasengan. "Kid, there is a time and place for all things, but this is neither the time nor the place." Jiraiya honestly would have rather let Naruto finish what he intended, but that would put him in some serious trouble. Naruto settled down and released the Rasengan. Jiraiya promptly let go of Naruto. "Neji, if Hinata dies, I will kill you even before the finals take place." With that said, Naruto disappeared in a swirl of leaves. He would have followed after Kurenai and Hinata, but he knew they wouldn't let him anywhere near the medical ward. "Well, kid, what type of flowers should I bring?" Jiraiya said. "For what?" Neji asked. "For your funeral," he replied bluntly. Jiraiya didn't wait for an answer. He just walked away. Neji grumbled and made his way back to the balcony so the next match could take place. He mumbled about how a failure can beat a genius. But at the moment Neji was looking pretty stupid, talking to himself like he was. He arrived back at the spot with his team only to be met with by glares from his teammates. Kakashi looked at the Genin. They mostly had stunned looks on their faces, including Sasuke. "I suppose you're all wondering what that jutsu was?" Kakashi asked. They all just turned towards Kakashi, showing their interest in knowing what it was. Kakashi looked at them for a moment before he spoke again. "That jutsu you just saw would be the Rasengan. It was a jutsu that was created by the fourth Hokage. Jiraiya probably taught it to him while he was training Naruto." Jiraiya appeared beside Kakashi. "Yeah, I did. Teach it to him. He mastered it in about a week or so, if I remember correctly." How could Naruto master something so complex in such a short amount of time? Shikamaru asked. "He just did. I don't know how he caught on so fast, but he did. Even I couldn't do it that quickly. And just because Naruto is good at playing a fool doesn't mean he actually is one. Although, I have to admit, he's done a rather convincing job of it," Jiraiya replied. "But why did Naruto react like that?" Sakura asked. "Let me ask you. Do you have a lot of friends and people that generally like you?" Sakura nodded. "Well, for Naruto, it's the exact opposite. He has few friends and most people hate him. I mean most of the people that will even talk to Naruto are currently in this room. There are only 3 people not currently in this building that like Naruto. All the genin from Naruto's class except Shino looked down at the ground. Unlike most of you, Naruto doesn't take his friends for granted, Jiraiya stated. The next and final match was finally called. It was Temari and Kiba Inuzuka. They both descended the stairs. Temari knew she was getting death glares from Gaara because he wasn't able to fight. They met in the middle of the arena floor, waiting for Hayate to tell them to begin. As soon as Hayate said begin, Kiba began to charge. Kiba took a swipe at Temari, only to receive a closed fan to the head that knocked him through the air. Kiba recovered and charged again. Apparently, strategy wasn't his forte. Temari opened her fan this time and swung it, creating a quick but massive burst of wind that threw Kiba back. Well, apparently brains aren't your strong suit. I have to admit though, you have a very thick skull, she said, mocking the Inuzuka. Bitch! Kiba got down on all fours, Shikyaku no Jutsu. For legs jutsu, Kiba ran at Temari on all fours, jumping from side to side, thinking she couldn't hit him. He was proven wrong when she swung her fan again, blowing him away once again. Temari had yet to actually move from her starting position, and Kiba had been thrown back by her attacks 3 times now. Come on Akamaru! Kiba yelled. Akamaru jumped on Kiba's back as soon as his master called for him. Jujin Bunshin. Beast human clone, Akamaru turned into a perfect copy of his master. Well, this is interesting. Maybe 2 can put up more of a fight than 1, she said, mocking the Inuzuka once again. Kiba growled at her. He and Akamaru ran at Temari, Gutsuga. Dual piercing Fang, Kiba and Akamaru began to spin incredibly fast in the direction of Temari. This is boring, she stated. She gripped her fan, and sent a massive wave of wind at Kiba and Akamaru, sending them off course and into the wall behind her. Kiba and Akamaru stumbled a bit before getting it together and regrouping. I have to say this was a boring fight, so I think I'll just end it now. Temari opened her fan all the way, revealing 3 purple moons on it. Futon. Kamaitashi no Jutsu. Sickle Weasel Jutsu, a tornado formed around Kiba and Akamaru. The tornado began to make shallow cuts as it carried them into the air. When the jutsu was finished, Temari watched Kiba's and Akamaru's bodies hit the ground. The 2 didn't move and Hayate called the match in favor of Temari, since Kiba was out for the count. Winner, Temari. Hayate announced. The matches were finally over, the winning genin assembled in front of the Hokage to hear what he had to say. Shouldn't we wait for Naruto or something? Sasuke asked. No, someone will inform him of all I'm about to tell at a later time. You will all have 1 month's time to prepare for the 3rd round of the exams. It will be tournament style. Now, Ibiki, if you would be so kind. You will each be drawing lots to see who you will face in the first rounds. Ibiki held out the box and let people take 1 piece of paper from it. Yo, Ibiki, I'll draw for my student, Jiraiya said as he walked over to Ibiki. Of course. Jiraiya drew right after Neji Hyuga. He saw Neji's number and grinned at the fact that he would be facing Naruto in the very first match. Well, Neji, it looks like your first match will either kill you or put you in traction for a few months. Everyone finished getting their numbers, then told them back to Ibiki. The first match was Neji Hyuga vs Naruto Uzumaki, second match Sasuke Uchiha vs Shino Aburame, third match Temari vs Shikamaru Nara, 4th/5th matches will be Rock Lee vs Gaara, then the winner will fight Kankuro, Ibiki announced. The matches are set. This month of training and preparation could be the difference between victory and defeat. Be sure to use the time well, Hiruzen announced, then dismissed everyone. With Naruto was sitting atop of the second exam building in the center of the Forest of Death. He was just staring off into the forest. I've been looking for you, Naruto. I thought I'd come and tell you how she's doing. So, how bad is it, Kurenai-sensei? Well, her internal organs will be fine. The medics can fix just about all of the damage. Kurenai, just tell me already. Stop trying to sugarcoat it. It's her heart, Naruto. It took 3 massive hits. It's amazing she's still alive. No one in the village can fix all the damage. If no one in the village can fix the damage, we'll just have to go outside of it, then. Naruto, you know that can't be done right now, considering what's going on. Does it look like I care? Obviously not, but still. Right now we're not sure if she's going to live or not. The damage is extensive. If she lives through the surgery, Hinata may or may not be well enough to attend the first match of the finals. Even then, she will have to go right back to the hospital, because the excitement will be too much for her heart. What's so important about the first match? Well, that would be your match against Neji. A devilish grin formed on Naruto's face. Good. I'll destroy him. Naruto's tone was dark, and it sent a chill down Kurenai's spine. Naruto's mood lightened up a little bit. Well, I'm going home. If Ino's dad comes looking for me, let him know. Naruto stood up and disappeared from the rooftop. Well, he's taking this rather well. This is taking it well, Jiraiya. Yeah, it's not like he's gone on a rampage or gone off to find my former teammate Tsunade, now, has he? So that's who he was talking about when he wanted to go outside the village? Yep, he learned a lot more than just how to fight when we trained. The Toads and I taught him just about everything we could, including information on my former teammates and many others from the other 4 great nations. He's got a great memory for some things, a bad one for others. Anyhow, we have things to discuss with the Hokage about our current problem. With that said, he and Kurenai disappeared. Naruto arrived at Ichiraku's to find Anko and Irika waiting for him. Naruto put on a fake smile and greeted the 2 of them. Well, if it isn't Irika-sensei and the crazy snake lady? What are you 2 here for? Naruto asked. Well, I was waiting for you to get back and congratulate you on passing the 3rd part of the exams, and Anko here wanted me to treat her to some ramen, Irika replied. Thanks, Irika-sensei. Naruto sat down on the stool next to Irika. He looked over to see Anko's arm wrapped around Irika's arm. I see you got yourself a hot but crazy girlfriend, Irika-sensei. Naruto said with a grin. Irika blushed slightly at Naruto's words. Anyway, order what you want, Naruto. Irika said in a cheerful voice. Yo! Old man. 4 bowls of miso ramen with beef. So, Naruto, how did the prelims go? Anko asked. Oh, they went just fine. I kind of left before the last match, though. Why? Irika asked. It was boring, that's all. Irika and Anko accepted the answer, and soon enough, their ramen was served. They had just begun to eat, when Inoichi walked up to them. Irika turned to see Inoichi Yamanaka standing right behind Narrate. What can I do for you, Inoichi? Irika asked. Well, actually, it's Naruto I need to speak with at the moment, he replied. Naruto sighed. Well, there goes my food. Naruto hopped off the stool and looked at Irika. I'll see you around, Irika-sensei. Naruto and Inoichi walked off into the village. Something was wrong with Naruto, Irika muttered. What do you mean, Irika-kun? He seemed as cheerful as always, Anko said. You would have to have been around him for a long time to realize he was just acting. Something must have happened after the 2nd part of the chunin exams. I haven't heard anything. Then again, it just ended a little more than 20 minutes ago. With Naruto and Inoichi, so, I take it you're Ino's dad? Naruto asked. I am, Inoichi replied. So how is she? The two were walking down one of the busiest streets in the village as they talked. A little shaken. But she's fine. Inoichi looked down at Naruto and saw the look on his face. No, she doesn't hate you or anything. It's not like you had any control over what happened to you when you were a baby. But it will be a little while before she can work up the nerve to talk to you again. I see. Now, what else did you come here for? I know it wasn't just to talk about Ino. Right to the point, I see. Yes, I did come to talk to you about something else. It's about what Ino saw while she was there that has me intrigued. Well, could we talk about this at my place? This isn't something I want to discuss out here. I don't see any problems with that. Let on. They arrived at Naruto's apartment. Inoichi was a bit surprised by the somewhat run-down look of the place. Why don't you live someplace else? Not sure, really. Sure, it's run down, but as long as I can remember, this is the place I called home before I left with Pervy Sage. I just never really thought about leaving it, that's all. They walked into the apartment. Naruto undid the strap on the sheath of his sword. He placed the sword next to the couch and sat down. Inoichi took a seat across from Naruto. Well, Inoichi, what did you want to ask me about? Well, I would like to see it for myself, instead of ask. Would that be fine with you? I don't see a problem with it. Inoichi preformed his technique and found himself inside Naruto's mind. He marveled at how different this place was than anything else he had ever seen. He looked at what seemed like an endless green field before him and one massive tree sitting in the center of it all. A path appeared in front of Inoichi that led to the tree. Inoichi followed it. He began to walk, but after a few minutes, it didn't even seem like he was getting closer at all. He began to run as fast as he could, and an hour later, he arrived at the base of the tree. It was far more massive than he could have ever imagined. Inoichi found Naruto sitting at the base of the tree, looking off into the endless field. How could you make this? I've seen so many different things before, but nothing such as this. Normally, there is some type of indication of where one's memories are, like a window, doorway, or pictures and things such as that. Honestly, I don't really know myself. The fox told me what to do, and I did it, nothing more. Wait, so you talked to the fox? Inoichi asked. I really don't understand why you would willingly let someone invade your mind, boy. Shut it, fuzzball. Naruto shot back. In the Hokage tower, Hiruzen was sitting at his desk. Shinobi were standing around his desk. They were all Jounin and ANBU commanders. They were there for one reason, to discuss what plans should be made to prepare for Orochimaru. Hiruzen sighed, then began to speak. You all know why you're here. Orochimaru's appearance is of great concern, as we have no idea what his goals are other than the fact that he is targeting Sasuke Uchiha. I have summoned you all here so I can distribute the orders necessary. The ANBU will shadow all foreign ninja groups. I want to know if any of them are plotting anything, and when, if that is the case. 2 ANBU units will also be assigned to shadow and protect Sasuke Uchiha while he and Kakashi Hatake are training for the final part of the exams. Kakashi and the ANBU commanders nodded in agreement. All but one of the ANBU commanders left the room to assign orders. The other ANBU stayed because he was the one who would be commanding to 2 units that were to shadow Sasuke Uchiha. Now, the rest of you will go about your business as normal, but you will keep a watchful eye. I also want you to prepare for what is to come if something big happens. The civilians may need to be taken to the shelters, so be sure to prepare everything necessary. There is little that can be done to find Orochimaru at this point, so we can only prepare to the best of our abilities. Is all this really necessary? One Jounin asked. When it comes to my teammate, it is. He's always been a manipulative bastard. He could have the support of one of the villages taking part in the exam for all we know, Jiraiya replied. Indeed. You all have your orders. If anything changes, I'll send word, Hiruzen stated. Everyone but Jiraiya, Kurenai, Kakashi, and Zabuza walked out of the room. So how is Naruto? He disappeared right after Hinata's match, Hiruzen asked. As to be expected, Inoichi wanted to talk to Naruto, so I'm guessing he's with him at the moment. Naruto is taking what happened about as well as to be expected, Jiraiya replied. What is Hinata's condition? Hiruzen asked. We won't really know for sure until the surgery is done, which will be at least another 5 hours or so, Kurenai answered. With Naruto, I'll never understand you humans, Takashi said with a big sigh. Takashi was sitting up in the tree on one of the massive branches. Well, no one asked for you to understand, Naruto stated. Sometimes you can be so stupid. Yeah, whatever, you talking fur coat. Inoichi looked a bit wary of the fox who was sitting directly above him in the massive tree. He looked at Naruto to see he was relaxed like the fox wasn't a threat in the slightest. He was amazed the boy openly insulted the fox and the fox returned his insults in kind. What exactly is going on? What do you mean? Naruto asked. Why are you talking with it, and why is he allowed to roam like this? Also, why do you talk so familiarly with it? Takashi grumbled. Why did people always refer to him as an it? He doesn't like being called an it, and I talk to him because I feel like it. And I allow him to roam because that's what I've decided. Yes, now leave before I remove you from this place. I grow tired of your presence. Takashi was extremely annoyed with how Inoichi referred to him. Inoichi did just that. He didn't know what the fox could do to him while he was in Naruto's mind, and he didn't want to find out. Inoichi and Naruto stood up from where they were sitting. So, Inoichi, what do you plan on putting in your report? I know you're going to write a report about this. Well, Naruto, I'm a bit disturbed to find out that you talk and interact with the fox, but the Hokage and Jiraiya-sama trust you, so I will do the same, until such a time where they feel and I myself feel differently. Inoichi left Naruto's apartment to go do things that he had to, considering who was now lurking in the village. Naruto sighed. He was sitting in his apartment alone. The day had royally sucked for him, and he didn't know what to do for the rest of the day. Naruto disappeared from his apartment to think. It was midnight now and Naruto had been sitting on the Hokage monument for almost 7 hours now, just staring off into the village. He couldn't sleep. There was far too much going on in his head at the moment. What do you need, Kurenai-sensei? Naruto asked. I came to tell you that Hinata's out of surgery. Her sister is with her now. I thought you would want to go visit. What about her father? No, he didn't go to see her, Kurenai replied. Kurenai's voice showed the hate and disdain for the man. I see, I might drop by later. Now please go. I'd rather be alone right now. But Naruto, you've... I said go, he yelled. Kurenai nodded and reluctantly left the Hokage monument, leaving Naruto alone to his own thoughts. Once Kurenai had left, Naruto stood up and disappeared from atop of the Hokage monument in a swirl of leaves. With Hanabi sat at the side of the bed her sister was currently in. She was hooked up to all manner of machines and other devices to keep her vitals stable. Hanabi had come as soon as word reached her that Hinata was out of surgery. Hinata was so pale, far paler than she normal was. She lay motionless on the bed hooked to the machines. Hanabi sat in utter silence. The only noise in the room was coming from the machines that were hooked up to Hinata. Hanabi didn't even notice Naruto, who was standing directly behind her. Naruto had appeared behind Hanabi in silence. He didn't move, he even cut his breathing down to keep himself from being discovered. Naruto stood behind Hanabi for a full 10 minutes without making any kind of noise. How is she? He asked. Hanabi jumped out of her chair and almost screamed. What? How did you get in here? There are guards posted at the door. And how long have you been standing there? She asked. Hanabi and instantly took a gentle fist stance as she spoke. Oh, calm down. I'm not here to hurt anyone. Hinata is my teammate. I'd heard she was out of surgery, and I came to visit, Naruto said. Oh, and I've been standing behind you for about 10 minutes. Then why didn't you come through the door like normal people? She asked defensively without dropping her stance. Well, that's an interesting story. Short version is your clan and most of the village despises me and wouldn't let me in if I walked through the front door, he replied nonchalantly. Hanabi still didn't drop her stance. What's keeping me from calling the guards? She asked. Well, nothing really, I guess. Go ahead, if it makes you feel better. But I'll be gone before they enter the room. Keep up your guard if you want. I just came here to see Hinata, that's all. Be paranoid all you like. Naruto sat down in the chair Hanabi was in no more than a minute ago. What's your name? Hanabi asked, as she dropped her gentle fist stance. That would be Naruto Uzumaki, he replied. What would yours be? Mine's Hanabi Hyuga. Ah, so you're Hinata's little sister. She talked about you a little bit before the prelims began. Of course Naruto already knew who she. Naruto heard someone coming down the hall. He sighed, well, it seems I have to go. Someone's coming. Perhaps we'll talk later? Hanabi nodded, and watched Naruto disappear from the room just as the door opened. Hayashi Hyuga walked in the door. Hanabi immediately bowed to her father. Hanabi, wait outside. I'll be with you in a moment, Hayashi ordered. Hanabi nodded and quickly left the room and waited outside the room for her father. Hayashi sat down on the chair next to Hinata's bed. He hadn't informed anyone that he'd left to see Hinata, nor did he let anyone see him leave the estate or come here. When he was on his way in the room he thought he saw Naruto in the room. But he must have been mistaken because only Hanabi was here. Hayashi stood up. He didn't have the luxury to stay, he had an image to uphold, of course. He brushed a strand of hair that was in Hinata's face to the side and began to walk out. I'm sorry this happened, Hinata. With those brief words he left the room and accompanied Hanabi back to the estate. A week had passed, and Naruto had been a recluse. Few ever saw him. Naruto had visited Hinata a few times but stopped going. He needed to train and take his mind off things. The few times he went he ran into Hanabi and talked with her for a few minutes then left. Little did Naruto know that today was the 10th of October. His birthday was today and he didn't even realize it yet. Naruto had barely slept the past week. He trained endlessly, even though he didn't have to in order to beat Neji. He destroyed 2 training fields already in his so-called training. Everyone has their own way of coping with events. Naruto's way was to train until he passed out. It was the early morning and Naruto sat on the Hokage monument looking down over the village. He was exhausted, but he really wasn't in the mood to sleep. He hadn't spoken with Jiraiya, or anyone for that matter, other than Hanabi, since he visited the hospital a week ago. Naruto hadn't even spoken to the fox for the entire week. Naruto's attention turned to the main street in the village, which was the marketplace. Villagers were stringing up lights and setting up stands, and he couldn't figure out why. He finally figured out when he spotted a parade float that was shaped like the Kyubi. So it's my birthday, huh? He said to himself. This year, he had expected to spend that time with Hinata, but seeing how things were right now, that wasn't an option. Well, at least I won't be chased around by the villagers. Naruto felt someone walking up from behind him. He turned around to see Shino, his teammate, walking up to him. Hey, Shino, what brings you here? He asked. Well, no one has really seen you in a week, and some of our friends were getting a little worried, Shino replied. Oh, yeah, sorry about that. I just felt like being alone, that's all. I think I can understand why, but I've never felt that way about someone, let alone see someone that close to me go through something like that. So, Shino, what's up? You always have a reason for speaking at least most of the time. I came to wish you a happy birthday, Naruto. Also to give you this. Shino took a scroll out from his trench coat. This is a scroll of wind jutsu. Jiraiya told me you were a wind type, so I bought this. And I'm sure Jiraiya has already taught you most of what is in this scroll, but I figured it would be useful nonetheless to you. Naruto took the scroll. Thanks, Shino. Regardless if it helps me or not, it means a lot to me that you remembered my birthday. Of course. What are friends for? I gave it to you now, knowing you didn't want anyone else knowing it was your birthday. Thanks, Shino. You were right. I'd rather they didn't know. Naruto, you look pretty tired. Are you sleeping properly? Not really. I've just been training. I needed to clear my head, and training is what does it for me. I suppose everyone has their own way to cope with things. But not sleeping isn't going to help anyone, Naruto. Especially yourself. Yeah, I guess you're right. How is the rest of our class doing since the exams? I really haven't talked with anyone for about a week now. Well, Sasuke has changed even more. I think I heard him laughing the other day. He's even been spending a lot more time with Sakura the past week, much to everyone's amazement, including Sakura's. I think Sasuke plans on asking her to the festival this evening. Huh? So Sasuke is finally taking an interest in girls? I was getting worried for a little bit there, Naruto joked. What about Ino? Is she back to normal? Yes, she was back out and about the day after the preliminaries. She wanted to speak with you, but figured that, since you disappeared, you wanted to be left alone. Ino's been spending most of her time with Haku, actually. I'm not sure what's going on between the two of them, but it seems more than just a friendship. So Haku and Ino, huh? Never imagined that one happening. Indeed. Kiba has been doing his own thing since his loss, training with his family in an attempt to get over his loss to Temari. He's taking the loss harder than I expected. Yes, but to the Inuzuka, winning and losing are far more serious than it would be to you or me. And I think Kiba's mom was upset with how badly he had lost more than anything. I suppose that makes sense. So what about the others? Choji is training with Shikamaru. I don't think Shikamaru likes hard work. Naruto smiled. Yeah, that sounds like Shikamaru. Always complaining about everything being troublesome and whatnot. What about you, Shino? What have you been up to these days? Well, after the prelims, I had to replenish my colonies since I lost so many during our fight in the Forest of Death. I was lucky that it only took 2 days to complete. Sometimes it can take up to a few weeks for new colonies to adjust properly to a new host. How do you feel about your match against Sasuke? It is doubtful I can beat him. His speed is far greater than mine at this point, and bugs and fire do not mix well. Uchiha are known for being highly proficient in fire-style jutsu. I have no desire to forfeit my match, but I will not sacrifice my bugs needlessly if the match goes badly. And plus, don't you want to be the one to beat Sasuke? Naruto couldn't help but grin at Shino's question. Oh yeah, I've been wanting to see what he's capable of doing, especially when Kakashi is done with him after this month, Naruto replied. What are your bugs to you, Shino? That is an interesting question. What are they to me? Well, in a way they are a part of me, like an extension of my being, but they are also my friends. That is really the best way I can explain it to you. I see. Well, Naruto, I'll leave you to your thoughts. Again, happy birthday. Shino shook hands with Naruto and departed. That had brightened Naruto's day, even if just a little bit. With Kakashi and Kurenai were still in bed and it was 9 in the morning. Since the prelims, Kurenai began to stay at Kakashi's place. Kurenai had been rather depressed since what happened at the prelims with Hinata. Naruto had been a recluse for the past week. Even Shino was a bit down from the whole incident. Kurenai had her arms wrapped around Kakashi as they laid in bed. She was content right now just to lay there with him. But of course they would have to get up soon, especially since they heard a knock at the door. Kakashi kissed Kurenai and slipped some sweat pants on to answer the door. "Be right back, I'll see who it is." He then stepped out of the bedroom to answer the door. Kakashi arrived at the front door. He opened it to see Anko and Irika standing there. "Well, Kakashi, it seems you've been getting busy with my best friend," Anko said with a perverted grin on her face. She then slipped by Kakashi and ran into the bedroom. You could hear the door lock behind her. Kakashi and Irika stood there, as they could hear Kurenai yelling at the snake mistress of Konoha. "In the bedroom, what are you doing, Anko? I don't have any clothes on." "Oh, come on. I just want to get in bed with you." "What's wrong with that?" "I'm naked, that's what's wrong with it." What are you doing, Anko? "Stop that, don't take off your clothes." "Oh, come on. We're both girls. And we're both naked now, what's the big deal?" Anko ripped her clothes off, revealing her body in all its naked glory. "The big deal is that you're not going to do something weird, and there are people in the other room." And, true to what Kurenai said, Anko didn't stop. Grinning perversely, she ripped the bed sheets off in one pull, revealing Kurenai in all her naked glory. Anko stood at the foot of the bed with an even more perverted grin on her face. "Well, they can wait. It's girl fun time." She proceeded to pounce on Kurenai like a cat would pounce on a ball of yarn. Outside the bedroom, Kakashi and Irika, at that point, had nosebleeds from the sounds, and were picturing what was going on in the other room. It took everything they had to not just rush into the room and see what was actually happening. Over at the bathhouse, Jiraiya's pervy sense kicked in. "I sense a great disturbance in the perv," he said, disappearing from the bathhouse with a purpose. Jiraiya followed his pervy sense to Kakashi Hataki's house. He saw Irika and Kakashi standing at the front door. Their noses were bleeding. "My pervy sense never fails," he exclaimed. Jiraiya ran up to the doorway but was stopped by both Kakashi and Irika. "You wouldn't happen to be trying to peek on two certain kunoichi now, would you, Master Jiraiya?" Kakashi asked in a threatening tone. His hand was now electrified, ready to run Jiraiya through. Jiraiya looked at Irika to see he already had two kunai, one in each hand. They were both positioned at a rather crucial part of Jiraiya's body. No, what would make you think that?" he said jokingly. "Anko, stop touching my breasts. But they're such a nice size and perfect shape. They're also so soft, yet firm. Kakashi must have a lot of fun with these." All three men had images of what that scene must have looked like in their heads at that moment. But Kakashi and Irika weren't about to let Jiraiya go anywhere until Kurenai and Anko came out of the other room. They knew him. They knew him far too well, in fact. If they let him go, he would just find a window or some other place to peep on them. 5 minutes later, Kurenai and Anko came out to see their boyfriends about to kill Jiraiya. They instantly knew what had transpired and what Jiraiya was aiming to do. They had both wondered why Kakashi and Irika never walked into the room to watch, and now they knew why. The two kunoichi were of course now fully dressed, and proceed to walk over to Jiraiya. They had dangerous looks on their faces like they wanted blood. "You weren't trying to peep on us now, were you, you perverted old man?" Kurenai asked in a low and threatening tone. She looked to see that he had his notepad and pen in hand. "Irika-kun, could I see both those?" "Kunai?" Anko asked in a sweet tone. Irika threw the two kunai over to Anko, who gave one to Kurenai. "First one to cut him doesn't have to buy breakfast?" Kurenai asked. "You're so on. Anko replied. Kakashi-kun, if you would please let Jiraiya go so we can begin our hunt? Jiraiya ran as fast as he could out of the doorway, with Kurenai and Anko in tow. Kakashi and Iruka watched their enraged girlfriends relentlessly chase the perverted Sannin. Well, how about some coffee? Kakashi asked. He knew they weren't going to stop until one of them cut or maimed Jiraiya. Sure, Iruka replied. I'm sure they will be done in an hour or so. Then we can get a late breakfast or an early lunch. The two men walked into the house and began to talk about the current events of the village while their hot and deadly girlfriends tried to cut or maim the perverted Sannin. With Sasuke and Sakura were walking down the main street looking at all the people who were decorating for festival tonight. Sasuke kept trying to find a way to ask Sakura if she wanted to go with him, but the words just wouldn't leave his mouth. Sakura on the other hand wasn't even thinking about that, she was just happy to be walking next to Sasuke and talking with him without getting a scowl in return. The two were actually getting a lot of looks from the various people they walked by. They weren't glares or anything of the sort but rather pleased looks. So Sasuke-kun, have you been training with Kakashi-sensei? Sakura asked. Yeah, he's been teaching me a few jutsu along with one that might be able to match Naruto's Rasengan, he replied. What about you? What have you been doing to train since Kakashi is spending all his time with me? Well, Kurenai offered to teach me some of the things she knew, like genjutsu, and some various other things. I'd really like to learn medical ninjutsu someday. Sasuke logged that away in his mind in case he ever met a medical ninjutsu specialist worth mentioning. Well, isn't that cute? Sasuke finally got himself a girlfriend, or at least he started noticing girls. They both blushed and turned to see Naruto standing right behind them. He wasn't looking too great. He had bags under his eyes like he hadn't slept in some time. What do you need, Naruto? We're a little busy as you can see, Sasuke said. He was a bit irritated that Naruto interrupted his time with Sakura. Well, Sasuke, I think that's the first time you haven't insulted me when addressing me, Naruto replied. And just ask Sakura if she wants to go with you to the festival already, it's really annoying watching you pussyfoot around it. Naruto said bluntly. Sakura just looked down at the ground and smiled a bit. Sasuke on the other hand was getting seriously irritated with Naruto. Will you be coming to the festival tonight, Naruto? Sakura asked, getting over her embarrassment. Naruto chuckled a bit. No. I'm not welcome at this festival. I'll be doing my own thing tonight away from this festival, he replied nonchalantly. Both Sakura and Sasuke just looked at Naruto. What did he mean not welcome? Who wasn't welcome at this festival? The two looked around at the villagers. They were glaring at Naruto like he was some kind of murderer. So, have you been training? Sasuke asked. A little. I've been a bit too preoccupied to train yet, he lied. Just then, Jiraiya came running down the street as fast as he could. Right behind him were two very familiar people. Moreover, the two kunoichi looked pissed. They each held a kunai, ready to maim the perverted Sannin. Slow down, damn it. We just want to talk. Anko yelled. How about hell no, he replied. As soon as Jiraiya turned his head back around to face where he was going, Kurenai threw her kunai at him, grazing his arm and visibly drawing blood. Ha, I win, Anko. You're buying. Kurenai yelled, declaring her victory. Anko sighed, damn it, she muttered. The two veteran kunoichi walked off in the direction they came from, disappearing into the crowd. Sasuke and Sakura were dumbfounded at the scene that had just taken place. They had no idea what to say. They both looked at Naruto, expecting him to answer the question they had. What? He probably deserved it. He was probably trying to peek on them in the bathhouse or something like that, and they caught him. Why do you think I call him Pervy Sage? Naruto said. Anyhow, I'm going to Ichiraku's to get some food. Later. Naruto disappeared in a swirl of leaves. Sasuke looked at the ground. So Sakura-chan, how about it? Sakura hugged him. Pick me up at 7, she said happily. She let go of Sasuke and ran off to her home. She was going to probably try on all her good kimonos 7 times, then just wind up going out and buying a new one. With Naruto appeared at Ichiraku's where Ayame and her father, Teuchi, greeted him. Happy birthday Naruto, both Teuchi and Ayame said, almost in unison. Naruto smiled, thanks guys, if people come around, please don't talk about it being my birthday, alright? He asked. His voice was almost pleading. We understand Naruto, Teuchi replied. So where have you been? You haven't been around for quite some time. Just thinking and training. Not much, really, Naruto replied. Could I get 2 bowls of miso with beef? Of course, coming right up. Naruto sat on the stool waiting for his ramen. He sighed, he wished this day was already over with. Sure, he was 13 now, but that really didn't matter to him at the moment. Right as Teuchi was coming out with the bowls Naruto ordered, Sasuke came walking up to the ramen stand and sat down next to Naruto. What's up, Sasuke? Did Sakura reject you or something? He asked teasingly. Very funny Naruto, he replied. So what did you want, Sasuke? Naruto asked, sliding a bowl of ramen over to Sasuke. Might as well eat while you're here, Naruto said as he began to eat his bowl of ramen. Why did people back there look at you like you weren't even human? Sasuke asked. Naruto knew that was coming, so he didn't act surprised by the question. Now isn't that the 2 million Ryo question? I'd talk with you about a lot of things, Sasuke, but that question is something I won't even begin to answer or discuss with you. Naruto went back to eating his ramen. Sasuke shrugged and began to eat the ramen Naruto had shoved in front of him. Hey, this stuff is pretty good, Sasuke muttered. Yep, that's why I always come here. Anyhow, Sasuke, I hope Kakashi teaches you something that can match the Rasengan. Our match will be far more exciting that way. Sasuke agreed. I'd have to agree with you. It would be a lot better, wouldn't it? With Shikamaru and Choji were currently eating brunch. Well, Choji was eating, and Shikamaru was having some tea. There was a shogi board in front of them. Choji also played a game or two with Shikamaru when he was really bored. Your move, Choji. Ah, right, Choji moved a piece seemingly at random. Just then, Temari walked by and saw that guy Shikamaru playing shogi. She immediately turned around and entered the restaurant, then walked up to Shikamaru and Choji. It was Shikamaru, right? He nodded. Well, how about playing me in a round of shogi? Shikamaru raised an eyebrow at the request. He looked over at Choji, who had just finished eating. Choji smirked and got up and began to leave. Have fun, Shikamaru, Choji said jokingly. Don't leave me, he yelled. Some friend he is. This is so troublesome. The board was reset as Temari sat down in the booth with Shikamaru. Just to let you know, I've never lost in shogi before, Temari stated pridefully. Shikamaru smirked. Well, don't expect to win again anytime soon, he thought. Shikamaru had a feeling she wasn't going to stop playing until she won a game. That little goal may prove to be very challenging for Temari. The two began their match in silence without even a word to the other. Shogi pieces moved left and right on the board as they played. With Haku and Ino, Haku was currently helping Ino with the flower shop. He seemed to be doing that a lot lately. He had heard about what happened with Ino's fight with Naruto. Haku had known about Naruto's tenant before, but Ino didn't know that. Haku had to ask Inoichi for the details on what happened to her, and was glad to hear it wasn't anything serious. Ino wasn't aware that Haku knew what happened in her match with Naruto. Haku was rearranging some plants as he thought about asking Ino to the festival. Haku stood there for several minutes playing with the flowers before asking her. Ino, would you like to accompany me to the festival this evening? He asked. Ino smiled. I'd love to, she replied as she pruned some of the leaves on the flowing plants. There was only one problem with taking Ino to the festival tonight. Haku had nothing to wear. Haku was going to have to ask Zabuza for some money to get something to wear, seeing as he was now his legal guardian and he held all their money. While Haku was engrossed in his thoughts, Ino walked over to him and kissed him on the cheek. Just then, Inoichi walked in and that peck on the cheek, wherever it was leading to, was leading nowhere further. Well, Ino, I have to go now. See you at 7, she finished his sentence. 7 it is, then. Haku disappeared from the room to find where Zabuza was at. At Kakashi's home Kakashi, Kurenai, Anko, and Irika were sitting down at the table eating the takeout Irika bought. Anko had lost the bet and as soon as she got back to Kakashi's place with Kurenai, she had Irika buy takeout. They decided on takeout so they could discuss what was going on in the village, as Irika and Anko weren't informed why ANBU patrols were up 4 times the normal amount. Kakashi just said it as bluntly as he could. Orochimaru is in the village. That's why you've been noticing the increase in security. Irika put a hand on Anko's shoulder to make sure she didn't try and go find the snake Sannin. Really, I'm fine Irika-kun. Anko-chan, just promise you won't going looking for him later. Irika's voice was almost pleading. What? Are you going to restrain me if I say no? She asked seductively, hinting at something kinky. Irika blushed at what she said. He knew exactly what she was getting at with that response. Kurenai decided to change the subject to something not about the snake Sannin. So, how about we do a double date, and all 4 of us go to the festival tonight, she asked. That sounds great. Anko replied. Her mood had pulled a full 180 with that suggestion. Kakashi grumbled. He didn't really have any clothes for that sort of thing. What's wrong Kakashi-kun? Irika laughed. He had a good idea what was wrong. You have no dress clothes for something like this, do you, Kakashi? Kakashi's head hit the table, answering Irika's question for him. They all began to laugh at Kakashi's expense. Well, I guess it's agreed, then. We all go tonight, but we will have to get Kakashi some decent clothes for the occasion, Irika declared. They had more than enough time, seeing as it was only 11 in the morning, and the festival didn't even begin till dark, which was around 7 in the evening. The 4 of them went back to eating and chatting about the festival, and making fun of Kakashi being a workaholic. In the Hokage's office Hiruzen was sitting in his office, going over paperwork as he always did. The council did raise some hell over what happened to Ino. Hiruzen, however, didn't even entertain them with a council meeting. He just flat out ignored them, as did Inoichi and his daughter, Ino. Inoichi had warned his daughter ahead of time about not using any mind ninjutsu on Naruto, but she didn't listen. Therefore it was her own fault this occurred. Ino had accepted her father's verbal lashings and even a few good smacks for disobeying him. Ino now knew Naruto's burden now, and she understood why her father had told her not to use any of her family jutsu on him. She felt really bad for Naruto after all was said and done. Hiruzen sighed. He was going over the medical report of Hinata Hyuga. Right now, she was improving. At this rate, she might be awake and able to watch the finals. He wanted to send Jiraiya off to find Tsunade to help the girl, but he couldn't. Not with Orochimaru somewhere in the village. And right now, he needed every able-bodied shinobi, just in case. He looked over the reports from his ANBU. Not a single sighting. Orochimaru will probably strike on the day of the finals. However, if that's the case, I could send Jiraiya to find Tsunade right away. No, if I sent Jiraiya out, Orochimaru would do something, and if he summons his snakes, we will need the toads. Hiruzen grumbled. He could do nothing to help Hinata's condition. He could only wait for now. With Naruto it was now 3 in the afternoon. Naruto was sitting in his apartment, cleaning his sword. He hadn't cleaned it properly since the wave mission, so it was overdue. His chat with Sasuke had lasted about 30 minutes before Sasuke left to train. Surprisingly, he was training by himself today. Naruto had just finished his sword cleaning when he heard a knock at his door. He sheathed his sword and walked over to the door. He opened the door to see Jiraiya standing there with a rectangular box. "What's up, pervy sage?" "Well kid, Hinata seems to have already bought your birthday present. Kurenai just handed it to me a few minutes ago and asked me to deliver it to you. I guess Hinata bought whatever this is and stored it at Kurenai's house for safekeeping." He handed Naruto the box, and the boy gladly accepted it. Naruto opened the box and took out a cloak. Its main color was black and the flames at the bottom were a blood-red color. Naruto smiled and quickly put it on. The cloak fit perfectly. "You look just like your father with that on, Naruto," Jiraiya stated. Jiraiya smiled fondly at the memories that he had of Minato. "What do you mean?" "Well, I might as well tell you now. This will either lighten your depressed mood as of late or make it worse." Jiraiya walked over to Naruto's sword and picked it up. He pulled out a kunai and began to cut away all the silken thread and removing all the other decorative items on the hilt of the sword. "Pervy sage, what are you?" Naruto stopped talking as he saw what Jiraiya was revealing. It was a seal on the hilt of the sword under all the decoration. He had seen a lot of seals before. Jiraiya drilled everything he knew about seals into Naruto. Naruto noticed it needed blood to open it. "This was one of your father's best works, Naruto. As you've already noticed, it's a blood seal." Jiraiya handed Naruto the sword. "Naruto, this is your inheritance." Naruto just looked at the sword. He knew now who his father was. "Why didn't you tell me?" "It was for your own safety, kid, and as your godfather, I did what I thought was best for you. I shouldn't have left you like I did for the first 10 years of your life. I honestly didn't think you would be treated like you were. When I came back and found out what was happening, I took you with me and trained you." Jiraiya paused for a moment. "I wanted to wait to tell you who your real parents were. I wanted to wait until you were old enough to understand why they did what they did." "I'm sorry, Naruto. Did Kakashi know about this?" "He knew who your parents were, yes, but he didn't know who you were until I took you with me. Moreover, he knew nothing of that sword's real purpose. This was supposed to be given to you on your 16th birthday, but Kakashi decided on his own to give it to you much sooner. Your father basically hid all his jutsu, and everything he created in plain sight." Naruto just looked at the sword. Why would he use me? Why not someone else? How could the Hokage ask to use someone else's child, when he is not willing to use his own? That is the one problem with being Hokage, Naruto. You have to make hard decisions. I wasn't here when the Kyuubi attacked the village, Naruto. If I had been, I would have taken your father's place when sealing the fox. What do you mean take his place? The method he used to seal the fox required him to sacrifice his soul to the death god to seal the fox. That's what I meant by taking his place, Naruto. What about my mom? Kushina Uzumaki, she was a fighter, and quite the beauty. Right after giving birth to you, she fought with the old man to hold the fox with the other ninja in order to give your father time to prepare everything he had to. That's what Hiruzen told me. I remember one such woman from that day. She had long red hair, and smelt like she just had bore a child. I'm sorry for not telling you, Naruto. I'll leave you now to go over what your father and mother left you. Jiraiya began to walk out of the room, when Naruto asked him one last question. Did my parents love me? They were counting the days till you were born, Naruto. Jiraiya walked out of the room, giving Naruto some time to think and go over everything his parents left him. Naruto cut his finger on the blade of the sword and released the seal. A rather large chest appeared in front of him. The chest also had a blood seal on it, locking it. Naruto released that seal as well, and opened the chest. There were at least 10 jutsu scrolls, 6 storage scrolls, and a photo album. That's what was visible until he started taking things out. Did you know? Naruto asked Takashi. I had my suspicions, but I didn't know you were the son of the man who sealed me in you. The fox didn't seem to care Naruto's father was the one to seal him. I see. Naruto opened the photo album. The first picture was his mother and father and him. His mom, Kushina, was sitting up in the hospital bed holding him, his father standing right next to her. They both had big smiles on their faces. This was probably the only picture of all three of them, besides the ones where Naruto was still in his mother's womb. Naruto smiled as he looked through the photo album. He wasn't angry with Jiraiya or his parents for their decisions. They had done what they had to, when faced with little to no options. Naruto wasn't even angry at the fox. He was just happy to find out who his parents were. Naruto put down the photo album and looked through the chest. He took out some of the storage scrolls and looked to see if they had some kind of labeling. Naruto found 2 storage scrolls labeled weapons. He opened one to see that these were extremely complex storage seals. These scrolls could hold far more than any kind of storage scroll you could purchase. He looked at other scrolls. One was labeled documents, and one that piqued his interest was the one labeled jewelry. He unsealed the scroll, and a box appeared in front of him. He opened it to find necklaces, earrings, all sorts of jewelry. But what caught his eye were 3 rings. One was an engagement ring with one rather large stone, and the other 2 were platinum wedding rings. They sealed all this stuff away before they left. They knew they weren't coming back, Naruto muttered sadly. Naruto sealed the box back in the scroll, and put the scroll back into the chest. Naruto sealed the chest back within the hilt of his sword. He would look at what his parents left him at a later date. He quickly ripped an old shirt and tied it around the hilt of the sword, then strapped the sword to his back, and disappeared from the room. Naruto appeared on the Hokage monument to see that Jiraiya was also here. Jiraiya was standing on the head of the 4th Hokage. Naruto walked over to Jiraiya and stood beside him. You know, this has been one really messed up birthday, Naruto muttered. Well, it has been anything but normal for you, I suppose, Jiraiya responded. So are you going to call me your godfather now? Fat chance, pervy sage. Well, can't say I didn't try. So, any questions for me? Many. But what I really need to know is, what were my parents like? Jiraiya smiled. He began to talk about how his parents differed. Jiraiya began to speak about Naruto's mother. How he acted just like her, always pulling pranks and showing little to no respect for her peers and elders just like Naruto did. And when it came to how far he would go to protect those he cared for came from his father. Minato became rather deadly when it came to protecting Kushina from harm. Even though she was by far one of the most deadly kunoichi he had ever known. Jiraiya went on and on about how he acted like his father and mother and the stories he had of them. 3 hours had passed and he wasn't finished with his stories. The festival was in full swing now. At the festival was in full swing. Just about, the entire village had turned out to take part in the Kyubi festival. The streets were alight, the vendors had set up shop and games had been set up for all to play. Anko, Irika, Kurenai, and Kakashi had just arrived at the festival. Kurenai was wearing a dark red kimono with pink sakura petals on it. Anko was wearing a simple, yet elegant dark purple kimono. She also had her hair down. Anko looked almost completely different than she did while on duty. The two of them looked beautiful. Irika was actually amazed. When he saw Anko, he had to ask the stupid question. Flashback: Kakashi and Irika had just arrived at Kurenai's apartment to pick them up for the festival. They walked up to the front door and knocked. Soon enough Kurenai opened door to reveal her and Anko in their kimonos. Kakashi and Irika were drooling slightly. Irika was just staring at Anko. She looked nothing like she normally did. "Are you really Anko Mitarashi?" Seconds later, a fist met his face, answering his question. He just smiled back at her as he got up. End flashback: Irika rubbed the side of his face, it still hurt a bit. "I'm really sorry about that, Irika-kun." "It's fine," he said with a chuckle. "But Anko, you really look different." "I doubt anyone knows who you are," he whispered. And he was right. No one seemed to know who she was. To them, she was just some purple-haired beauty Irika managed to score. The kimono, which no one had ever seen her wear before, plus the little bit of makeup Kurenai made her wear, coupled with the fact that she let her hair down, made the snake mistress look like a completely different person. Kurenai and Kakashi looked over at Anko and Irika and smiled. Kurenai was pleased that her friend had finally found someone. Kurenai looked up at Kakashi, who still had that damned mask on. She wished he had taken it off, but her hopes were dashed when he arrived dressed up and with it still on. She had seen him without his mask on, of course, but wished he'd stop living in the past and take the thing off. The four of them walked through the festival area, seeing Ino and Haku. Ino was wearing a purple kimono with a light pink floral design. Fitting, seeing as her mother runs a flower shop. Then a short time later, they spotted Sasuke and Sakura. Sakura was wearing a pink kimono that went with her hair. It had a sakura tree embroidered on it with some falling sakura petals. It seemed Sakura was dragging Sasuke around, but it didn't seem like he minded in the slightest. Then the four of them stopped and blinked several times. They saw Shikamaru walking with Temari from the Sand Village. They just watched as they walked by. What in the world happened? How did they end up going together? That's what the four of them wondered. Kurenai walked over to the two of them. How exactly did you two end up going together?" Temari smiled while Shikamaru grumbled a bit. Temari seemed more than happy enough to tell the tale. "Well, I saw him playing shogi with Choji, was it?" Temari looked over and Shikamaru getting a nod in response. "Right, Choji, well I wanted to play, so Choji left us to play some shogi. We played 6 rounds until Shikamaru made a bet. He told me, if I could win a single game, he would take me to the festival, and pay for whatever I wanted." "Then you won the next game?" Kurenai asked. "Oh, no, I think we played another 10 games before I won. And I only won because I, distracted him." Kurenai raised an eyebrow at this. "How, exactly?" Temari whispered into Kurenai's ear what exactly she did to throw the lazy genius off his game. "Oh, now that's dirty." "Yep, but I won. He didn't say I couldn't use any type of feminine wiles to throw him off." "Yeah. I should have set some ground rules," Shikamaru muttered. The 5 of them started to laugh at Shikamaru's somewhat misfortune. But then, something caught the veteran shinobi's eyes. It was Zabuza, all dressed up and with a very pretty dark-haired woman wearing a dark blue kimono. The woman was oddly familiar to Kakashi and Kurenai. Where had they seen her? That was the unspoken question between the two. "You don't think?" Kakashi began. "Tsunami?" Kurenai exclaimed quietly in bewilderment. Kakashi put a hand on Kurenai's shoulder when she was trying to walk towards them. She looked back at Kakashi. All he did was shake his head. "But..." Kurenai began to say, but Kakashi cut her off. "Leave them be. We can always ask about it later." And ask he would. Kakashi was going to have some serious fun when he pestered Zabuza later about this encounter. But how did Tsunami get here? That was the question Kakashi had. Then he remembered a report that Gozu and Meizu went off on a mission. Getting Tsunami and escorting her here was their mission, he concluded, as he never did finish reading the report at the time. Coming out of his thoughts, he saw how happy Zabuza looked standing next to her. He had disappeared a few times during the 2 weeks waiting for the bridge to be finished. Now he knew where Zabuza had been disappearing to. All the while, Anko and Irika had stood there, while Kurenai and Kakashi talked to each other. With Naruto was standing on the rooftops, watching everyone down at the festival. He had spent a little over 4 hours with Jiraiya, listening to all the little stories he had of his parents. He continued to watch the festival down below when he felt someone's presence behind him. "Well, Naruto, aren't you going to take part in the festival this year? It's as much to honor you as it is the other people who gave their lives that day," Hiruzen said with remorse. "If I went, I would just ruin the party for most. Plus, the only person I would like to take to it isn't exactly able to wake up at the moment. Naruto, you know I can't send you right now to find Tsunade." Yes, I understand. If only it wasn't for your former student, I could go." Naruto's comment about Orochimaru being his student stung. Hiruzen had high hopes for Orochimaru, but it seems the wars and loss of his parents drove him to his current state. It wasn't that uncommon for men during wars to be driven insane by the war itself, or even after the war was over, by the dreams they had of it or of the faces of the people they had to kill during it. "So you won't reconsider and join the festivities?" "No. I'm not welcome at this event. And I'd rather not go where I'm not welcome. Plus, what's the point of going to an event like this without a date or something?" "Very well, Naruto. I'm glad to see you're not as upset as you were the other day." Hiruzen disappeared from the rooftop, most likely back to do some paperwork. Naruto sighed. He couldn't tell the old man that he found out about his parents. Naruto looked back down at the festival. He saw all his friends wandering around with someone. He even spotted Anko, Irika, Kakashi, and Kurenai all walking together. At least he thought that might be Anko walking next to Irika, he really wasn't sure. Then he spotted Zabuza walking next to someone. Zabuza had a smile evident under the combat wraps he still wore on his face. "So Zabuza also has someone now," Naruto said with a smile. He was happy for the former rogue shinobi. Naruto looked off in the direction of the place where the memorial stone or stones were for those who fought that day against the Kyubi and lost their lives. Naruto disappeared from the rooftop. He was off to go see his parents' grave or graves. He really wasn't sure if they were given their own graves, considering the space issues for such things in the village. He arrived to find there were 2 gravestones. One of them was large and had many names written upon it. Obviously the names of the many shinobi that died that night 13 years ago. The second, however, had just 2 names written on it. This was Naruto's first visit to this place, seeing as in the past he had no need to come here. He began to read what the second gravestone said. "Here lie Minato Namikaze and Kushina Namikaze," he read. That was all the polished marble stone had carved on it, nothing more. His father's name was first, and under that was the symbol for and then came his mother's name. Naruto looked down to see a marble stone flat on the ground that retold what Minato had done. Of course it was the version of the story that told of his father killing the Kyubi. "Well, I guess it was easy enough to cover up my birth that night, considering all the chaos," Naruto muttered. "Well, I did cause a lot of destruction that night. I was wondering when you were going to start talking again. I was trying to be considerate for once, boy." "So, there's a first time for everything, huh?" Naruto said jokingly. Takashi grumbled. "Very funny, child." Naruto just laughed at Takashi. It was fun to mess with the fox because it could be so easy at times. Naruto walked out of the memorial site. The day had actually been a lot better than he had expected it to be. It was 4 in the afternoon the day before the chunin exams. Two figures wearing plain black cloaks that covered their entire bodies and part of their face, along with straw hats that covered the rest of their heads, were walking toward the Leaf Village. "So, Itachi, tell me again why we left?" "Because I no longer need to stay in that organization, Kisame," he replied. "And you were always complaining about the leader calling himself God, so I thought you wouldn't mind." "You kidding? I'm glad we left. I couldn't stand that guy. I'm God. Kneel before me," is what he would basically say. That guy seriously pissed me off. But what are we going to do now? I mean, it's not like we can go anywhere. And why exactly are we heading to the Leaf Village? Aren't you a wanted man there? Ever hear the saying, not all is as it appears? Figures there was something more behind that. With you, nothing's really what it looks like. Now why are we heading to your old home? You must have a reason. I heard Orochimaru was planning on destroying the leaf, and giving my little brother unwanted problems. So I get to kill him? Kisame asked excitedly. He had a big sadistic grin plastered on his face. Although, technically, he always had that grin on his face. It was just bigger at the moment. "The chances are high that we will have to fight," Itachi said in his normal emotionless voice, though he smiled a bit at the antics of his partner. "Great. I've been aching to shred something," he replied darkly. "I will have none of your homicidal rampages, Kisame. Only if the need arises will you be able to fight. Understood? Fine, you can be no fun sometimes." Itachi rolled his eyes. Only someone like Kisame would basically call him a killjoy because he couldn't kill until he was allowed. With Naruto for the past 3 weeks, Naruto pored over the scroll his parents had left him. He found that the Rasengan was an incomplete jutsu. His father had intended to add his own elemental affinity to it. He also found the Flying Thunder God jutsu among the scrolls, but the jutsu required a level of sealing ability that he just didn't have yet. Among the scrolls he found all of his dad's old notes on seals. And in one of the scrolls was basically an entire library of different jutsu his dad and mom had accumulated over the years. Naruto truly didn't have the time to go over everything. There was just so much of it. Naruto figured his father and mother had most of this pre-sealed long before any disastrous events, and on the eve of the attack by Kiba, they just sealed it within the sword. Hinata had woken up a week ago, but every time he went to go see her, a doctor was there, or some nurse that was stationed in the room to constantly check her condition or to help her get out of bed when need be. He sighed, he really wanted to go and just talk with her, but with the way things were, he just couldn't. It didn't help any that the old man was always sending Anbu to his place with updates on what was happening in the village. He knew since he was one of the few that had been informed about the whole incident he would be getting updates. But it was seriously annoying to have an Umbu pop up right outside his home with a message in the middle of the night. Naruto had yet to talk to anyone about knowing who his parents really were. He figured that right now was not the time to distract either Kakashi or the old man about it. Since Jiraiya had told him about his parents, Naruto had not really trained at all in the past 3 weeks. Naruto smiled suddenly, as the thought of smashing Neji's head into the ground tomorrow popped into his head. He had been waiting for that day for almost a month now. With Itachi and Kisame entered the village undetected. They were standing in an alleyway near a very familiar ramen stand. "What are we doing here?" Kisame asked. "I need to speak with someone," Itachi replied. "That's if she will still even speak to me," he muttered. "So Itachi has a girlfriend Had. Past tense, Kisame. She's probably moved on by now. Well, I suppose that explains why you always brushed off every woman that ever hit on you while we traveled together. I suppose it does, doesn't it?" Itachi made a clone that transformed into a random civilian. It left the alleyway with a piece of paper in its hands. With Ayam was in the back of the ramen shop cleaning bowls out when she heard the bell at the front ring. She put what she was cleaning down in the sink and went out to greet whoever it was, but she found no one there. She looked at counter to see a folded piece of paper. She opened it to see a series of numbers. She knew what the numbers meant, but if anyone else was to look at the numbers it would mean nothing to them. She quickly folded the note back up and ripped it to pieces. Her father wasn't going to be back for some time, so she closed the shop and ran off down the street. She ducked down alleyways and side streets until she was near the training grounds. She ran in the direction of Training Ground 20. Arrived at Training Ground 20, completely out of breath. She walked into the clearing to see a cloaked man sitting on a stump. She walked up behind him, just standing there. "I was afraid you wouldn't remember." The man took off his hat, revealing himself. Slapped him across the face as soon as she knew it was him. "I suppose I deserve that," Itachi said as she began crying. "Why did you leave without saying anything? If I said something you would have followed me, and I didn't want you to live that sort of life." Just looked down at the ground. He was right, she would have followed him. "Couldn't you have at least sent me some letters?" Itachi actually smiled. "I know I probably should have." Itachi looked up and down. "You seem to have grown up." Looked at the ground, blushing madly. Itachi picked up her chin and kissed her. Soon enough it went from a light kiss to them wrapping their arms around each other and kissing each other with everything they had. "I knew this was going to turn into a kissing scene," Kisame grumbled. Jumped behind Itachi for safety. She wasn't sure who this man was. "It's alright, chan. He's just my partner. Although he is, how should I put it, psychotic at times. I'm hurt, Itachi." "I'm sure," he replied sarcastically. Suddenly wrapped her arms around Itachi. "Are you going to leave now?" she asked sadly. "No. I'll be around at least for the next few days. I'm sure you understand right now that no one can know I'm in the village." Nodded in response. "Will you at least stop by a few times before you leave again?" Itachi smiled. "You make it sound as if I'm just going to leave again. You know, watching you smile is actually kind of scary, Itachi, seeing as you're always rather emotionless," Kisame commented. "Well, you left last time right after, and it's not like you can really stay." "You're a wanted man," said, completely ignoring Kisame. Itachi sighed. "I have to go for now. I'll stop by the shop sometime later." Itachi kissed her, and he and Kisame disappeared. Smiled and walked out of the training grounds. Even if he didn't stay, she was happy he was back for a short time. Wandered back to the ramen stand. It took her a lot longer to get back to the ramen stand than it did to get to the training field. Arrived back at the ramen stand to see that her father wasn't too pleased with her pulling a disappearing act and leaving the stand unattended. "So are you going to tell me where you've been for the past 3 hours?" She just smiled and walked into the back of the stand to clean the pots she had forgotten. Tucci decided to just let it go. She was in a better mood than she usually was. No point in ruining it. Tucci was brought out of his thoughts when Naruto sat down and placed his order. "Yo! Can I get 3 bowls of miso with beef?" "Sure, Naruto," coming right up. Tucci went back and began to cook. "So Naruto, where have you been? I mean, you've only come about 5 times since your birthday." "Yeah, sorry about that. I've just been really busy, that's all." "Of course. Are you ready for the finals tomorrow?" "Been ready for about a month now. I'm tired of waiting." "I see. Well, do you think you can beat Neji? He is the Hyuga prodigy after all." "Oh, I'll beat him. You can count on that." Naruto started to grind his teeth. He really wanted to beat him into the ground. "Good. I'm glad to see you're in high spirits about it. Tsuchi came from the back with Naruto's order. Tsuchi put the order in front of Naruto. Thanks Tsuchi. No problem. With Jiraiya just unlocked the door to his home and walked in. When he saw two figures in pitch-black cloaks and rather large straw hats. Ah, Itachi-1, I see you got my message. But who's your friend? This would be Kisame. I'm sure you've heard of him. Jiraiya nodded. So the snake is back in the village. Do you have any new information as to what his goals are? Yes, other than your brother and he wants to destroy the village, but we've known that for some time. To accomplish that he will need a lot of help and the only ones in the village that can give that kind of support would be the Sand Village. But I don't have any proof to support that theory. If my old teammate is planning anything, he'll spring whatever he has planned tomorrow, during the finals. I see. What do you wish for me to do? You called me back for a reason after all. If this turns into a war, the village will require your services once more, Itachi. I know you wanted to take what really happened that time with your clan to your grave, but there might not be a village if you still wish to keep that secret. Itachi sighed. Very well. I suppose it was only a pipe dream to think I could keep what happened that night a secret forever, Itachi replied. How is my little brother these days? Well, for the longest time, he was a little prick, to be honest. But in the past month and a half or so he's been more sociable and nicer to people. Hell, he even has a girlfriend now. Really? I see. That's good. I heard you took another apprentice. Is that true? Yep, he's fighting in the chunin exam finals like your brother is tomorrow. Is he now? That might prove to be an interesting match. Just then Jiraiya's front door unlocked and Naruto walked into the room. Naruto looked at the two other people then Jiraiya in the room. So who's the jolly blue giant, he asked pointing at Kisame. And what's the Uchiha traitor doing here? And that would be my apprentice. As you can see, he doesn't show a lot of respect for others. I call them like I see them, pervy sage. Kisame and Itachi both looked at Jiraiya. Jiraiya sighed and sat down on a chair. Well, Naruto, take a seat. I might as well tell you the whole story since you're here, Jiraiya stated. With Temari had been spending most of her free time playing shogi with Shikamaru. The only time she ever managed to win was when she used rather unorthodox methods. She was happy, though. Spending time with Shikamaru was rather fun. Sure, he could be lazy and call her troublesome, but she still liked him for some reason unknown to her. She was having second thoughts about going through with the invasion. She liked this village and the people in it. Temari knew she wasn't supposed to get attached to anyone, but things just happened. Ever since the festival, she had really started to like Shikamaru. Temari walked up to the building that was given to the Suna Shinobi to stay in, and unlocked the door to find Kankuro standing there waiting for her. I hope you're not getting too attached to that Shikamaru guy. You know what's going to happen tomorrow, right? Kankuro said. Oh, of course. Why would I fall for someone like him, she replied. She sounded a bit nervous when answering, but Kankuro let it slide. Temari went into the other room and sat down on the couch. She looked over at Gaara, who was standing in the corner. He had been acting strange since the prelims. Well, stranger than normal, that is. She had tried talking to him about it but all he would do is grunt or say, "Leave me alone." She found it frustrating that she couldn't even talk to her own brother. Then again, it was Gaara. He didn't have the most stellar of childhoods. Kankuro came into the room. So, Temari, ready for tomorrow? Not really, she replied. Do we really have to go through with this? Do we really gain anything by doing this? She asked. Baki, their Jounin sensei came into the room. It is the will of the Kazekage. We can only do as we are told, Temari. Honestly, I don't think anything will be gained by this, but I will do as ordered, so will the three of you. Kankuro and Temari nodded. Gaara just stood there not paying attention to what they were saying at all. Back at Jiraiya's place, so do you understand everything now, Naruto? Jiraiya asked. So let me get this straight, Naruto said, pointing to Itachi. Killed his clan except his brother because he was ordered to. All because they were planning to take over the village, Naruto said. He then continued. So they were really that arrogant? They thought they could actually take over the village? The only thing I could see happening is that they would throw the village into civil war for a short time, before they were all killed off, weakening the village in the process, Naruto replied. That about sums it up, Itachi replied. So your clan was really that arrogant and power-hungry to think they could pull that off? They were indeed full of themselves just because they wielded the Sharingan. They thought they were better than everyone else. You realize Sasuke probably won't accept that as an answer without a hell of a lot of proof to back it up, right? Yes, I realize this. That's why I've kept all the documentation on what they were plotting just in case this day ever came where I had to return to the village. Well, I know your story. What's Jolly Blue Giant's story? Can I shred him? Kisame asked. No, you can't shred him, Kisame, Itachi replied. Kisame grumbled and sat down on a chair in the room. He didn't like Naruto's nickname at all. Well, I suppose I'll explain what Kisame is doing here, Itachi began to say. Well, I'll start off with introducing him. This would be Kisame Hoshigaki, a former seven swordsman of the mist. Just like Zabuza, then, Naruto interrupted. Oh, so little Zabuza is here? Kisame asked. Little? Naruto asked. Anyhow, I suppose you could say we're friends. We met in some bar near the borders of Land of Rock and Fire a few years back. We traveled together for a time before we were confronted by a man with an offer to join this organization called Akatsuki. It's an organization filled with S-rank criminals like myself and Kisame here. Yeah, and the leader always calls himself God and whatnot. The guy is seriously messed up in the head, Kisame interrupted. As Kisame says, he is quite deranged with delusions of grandeur. We don't know who he is though. He never reveals himself to anyone. We were only in the group for a few years before I received your letter, Jiraiya. But their goal is people like Naruto. And I thought my life couldn't suck any more than it already did, Naruto said with a sigh. So they're after the tailed beasts? Well, that is certainly not good, Jiraiya muttered. No, it isn't. Orochimaru was in the organization as well at one point, but he has since left, Itachi said. So, my old teammate was in it as well? Makes sense, I suppose. Just as they were about to continue, Hiruzen appeared in the room. He smiled at Itachi before walking over to them. Well, Itachi, it has been some time. I'm sure Jiraiya has already told you your services will be required once more? And what happened that night will have to come out, Hiruzen stated. Yes, it has been some time, Hokage-sama. Jiraiya has told me all about it, and I figured as much, Itachi replied. Hiruzen finally noticed Naruto was in the room, and so was a rather large blue man with a rather large sword. What's Naruto doing here, and why is another one of the seven swordsmen here? Well, I came to talk to Pervy Sage about something, and walked into this, Naruto replied. And Kisame here is following me, Itachi answered the second of Hiruzen's questions. I see. Do I have to worry about Kisame killing anyone? No, I will be taking responsibility for him. We will keep out of sight until we are needed, Itachi replied. Very good, now please do fill me in on what you have been talking about. And they did, they discussed what already had been and then some. It was agreed Kisame could stay for now unless he decided to do something he shouldn't. They talked about Orochimaru and the organization Akatsuki, along with the goals of said organization. Hiruzen was a bit unnerved about the fact that Naruto was their target, along with the other tailed beasts. Well, that is certainly a disturbing bit of information you brought. Do you know why exactly they want the tailed beasts? Hiruzen asked. No. Pain, the leader of the organization, never told anyone why he wants them, only that he does, indeed, want them. I see. Well, we'll just have to keep an eye out for them, I suppose. But now that myself and Kisame have left, I don't think they will move for a few years, at least. They will need time to recruit some more individuals if they are to do anything. I see. Well, after the chunin exams, your arrival back in the village will be announced. Along with what the Uchiha massacre was really about. I am sorry, but this has to be done, Hiruzen stated. Yes, I understand. Although I think it will take a lot more than just a few pieces of paper and your word to convince my brother of it all. Yes, well, I'll leave him up to you. I'm sure you kept a lot of the records on what they were planning, just in case something like this were to happen. Yes, I have. Naruto stood up. Well, I'm going to get some rest. I have some matches to fight tomorrow. He disappeared in a swirl of leaves. So, who do you think will win, Jiraiya? My brother, or your student? Itachi asked. To be honest, I'm pretty sure Naruto will win. He's just as talented as his parents, if not more so. Ah, I see. Well, it will be interesting to watch, nonetheless. I take it you trust Naruto to not say anything until you want to reveal it all? Itachi asked. Naruto won't say anything, so no need to worry about that, Itachi, Jiraiya answered. Very well, Itachi replied. With Naruto was tossing and turning in his bed. He had been doing this for the past 2 hours and it was now midnight. He sighed, and threw the covers off himself. He put on his normal clothes and the cloak Hinata gave him for his birthday. He hadn't actually worn it since his birthday. He planned on wearing it to the finals tomorrow, but not before then. He wanted people to get a big shock when he looked like his father, along with use of his father's jutsu, the Rasengan. He wanted to go see Hinata since he hadn't done so yet. He opened the door and stepped out. It was midnight, so maybe she would be awake. Well, at least that's what he hoped. If she wasn't awake, he wasn't going to wake her. He took to the rooftops, heading for the hospital. Luckily, Hinata was moved to a room with a window, making it easier for him to get in and see her. Naruto arrived at the window to Hinata's room. He opened the window and hopped in, finding that she was asleep. He walked over to the bed and moved some stray strands of hair out of her face. She still looked a little paler than normal, but much better than the last time he had come to see her. Naruto sighed. He wanted to talk to her, but she was asleep. He began to walk back to the window, when he was stopped by someone's voice. Naruto-kun? Hinata asked in a sleepy voice. Naruto turned around to see Hinata sitting up in her bed. Naruto walked back over and sat down next to Hinata on the bed. She immediately hugged him. Naruto smiled and hugged her back. I missed you too. I like the cape you got me. Hinata blushed. You're welcome. So Hinata, how have you been? And when can you finally get out of here? I don't know, Naruto-kun. I still cough up blood if I do too much, or if there's too much excitement. Naruto sighed. I see. Hinata saw the expression on his face. She knew what he was thinking at that moment in time. Naruto, please don't kill my cousin. I know he isn't the nicest of people, but he wasn't always like this. Naruto cut her off. He tried to kill you, Hinata-chan. What do you want me to do? Forgive him, he asked. I don't think I can forgive that, Hinata-chan. I don't care who it is. Naruto, please promise me you won't kill him in the finals tomorrow, she pleaded. How can I promise something like that? If Jiraiya didn't stop me during the prelims, he would be dead already. Hinata's grip around his waist became tighter. Naruto, please promise me you won't. Naruto sighed. Alright, Hinata-chan, if that's what you really want, Naruto replied. How can you forgive him so easily, Hinata-chan? Because he's family. I really still don't understand, but if that's your reason, then it's fine with me. Naruto stared at Hinata's lips for a few moments before kissing her passionately. They stayed like that for about a minute before they broke apart. You know, I've been wanting to do that for a month now, Naruto said. Me too, she replied. Hinata was blushing furiously, she could feel her hair pounding. She suddenly started to cough, and grabbed a napkin to cough into. Once she was done coughing, Naruto saw the blood on the napkin. Naruto took the napkin and threw it away in the trash. He went back over and helped Hinata lay back down in the bed, tucking her in and kissing her on the forehead. I'll see you tomorrow, Hinata-chan. Naruto jumped out of the window, headed for his apartment. He hated seeing Hinata like that in a hospital bed. It ate at him. Naruto awoke when his alarm went off at 8 in the morning. He got out of his bed and got dressed. Today was the day Neji would get what he deserved. Just as he walked into the bathroom to brush his teeth, he noticed two cloaked figures in his apartment. Might I ask what you two are doing here? Well, the only place in the village that isn't being watched happens to be your apartment building. Jiraiya said you wouldn't mind if we used it for today. Itachi replied. Of course he would say that. It's not like he has to live here. Naruto said angrily. Fine, just for today, and only as long as you don't touch anything. No need to worry about that. We won't mess with your stuff. Yeah, not like there is anything worth a damn in this dump, Kisame shot out. Whatever, fish face, just don't touch my sword. What did you call me? Oh, you didn't like that name? How about walking sushi roll, fish boy, or shark man? I've got a list of things I could call you. Want to hear more? Kisame just sat there in the chair, staring at Naruto. He had never been insulted like that before. No one had the balls to insult him like that. Why aren't you taking your sword? Itachi asked. Your match is today. I doubt I could stop myself from dicing Neji to pieces if I had it. At this point, Naruto was leaving the apartment. He had already changed and put on the cape Hinata had given him. He walked out the door and shut it hard behind him. Kisame was still staring off into space, still trying to understand why that child wasn't afraid of him. Kisame could make a highly experienced ninja piss their pants, yet he couldn't even spark a small bit of fear in this boy, like he could just by walking by other ninja. Well, that was interesting. He seems to like calling you lots of different things, Itachi said, breaking the silence. I want to shred him. Kisame muttered. Don't fool yourself, Kisame. Even if you could, you wouldn't. I doubt there has ever been anyone that has just flat out insulted you like that. I bet you even respect him a little for that. Kisame just grunted at Itachi. With Naruto was rather annoyed that Pervy Sage said they could stay there for the day. He still had an hour or so before the final started. He decided to just head straight to the arena and wait. He really wasn't in the mood for the glaring he always gets from the villagers. When Naruto reached the arena, he sat on top of the ceiling over the seats of the spectators. Naruto sighed. He had a feeling today wasn't going to be that great. He, along with everyone else who knew about Orochimaru being in the village, was expecting him to make his move today. They didn't know when, but they knew if he was planning anything, it would have to be today. Naruto felt a presence behind him. Well, Kakashi, I didn't expect you back until a little later. Yes, well, Kurenai wanted me back on time, you see. Oh, well, that makes sense. Kakashi noticed that Naruto didn't have his sword on him. No sword? Yeah, well, I thought it would be best not to dice Neji into a dozen pieces. Yeah. I suppose that's the wiser course of action. So are you just going to sit here till it starts? That was the general plan at the moment, yes. Kakashi just shrugged and left. He couldn't help but notice how much Naruto looked like his father in that cape. Kakashi disappeared from sight. Naruto sighed and laid back and just stared up at the clouds. I still think you should kill the bastard. We already talked about this. Hinata-chan said not to, so I'm not. Kami, you are so whipped, boy. Yeah, he replied. What do you plan on doing to Neji? First I'll toy with him, and then I'll crush him like an insect under the heel of my foot. I like that plan. Naruto laid there talking with the fox about current events until Naruto heard people gathering in the stands below. He got up and walked over to the edge to see that most of the genin that were in the finals had gathered in the center of the arena floor. He waited a short while longer until all the genin were in the area. At the arena floor the genin were all there. All except Naruto, that is. He had yet to show, and it was almost time. They stood there looking at each other until Neji said something. I guess he was all talk and nothing else. Funny, Neji. I wonder how well you could fight if you couldn't use your precious Byakugan. Naruto asked. Neji was startled. Naruto was now standing next to him. Well, Naruto, I see you're finally here, Hayate said. Yeah, sorry, I was a little sidetracked is all. Naruto looked up at the crowd, he could hear their whispers about his appearance. He scanned the crowd until his eyes landed on Hinata. She was sitting next to Kurenai and a medic. His eyes were filled with concern. He didn't think she needed a medic next to her still. With Hayashi was sitting with the rest Hyuga. Next to him was Hanabi. She looked rather upset about something. He sighed a little and turned his attention towards Naruto, who was staring at his eldest daughter. He didn't like the way he was looking at her at all. He was brought out of his thoughts when Hanabi stood up and started yelling. Kick Neji's ass, Naruto. Hanabi sat back down after that very un-Hyuga-like display. Hayashi looked strangely at his youngest daughter for a moment, before looking back to the arena. Hanabi sat there as if nothing at all had happened. Down in the arena Hayate was about to talk again when they all heard Hanabi yell. Kick Neji's ass, Naruto. Naruto smiled at Hanabi's little outburst. Well, Neji, it seems Hanabi wants me to make you eat dirt as well. Everything has already been decided. I will win this match. Naruto just laughed at him. As I was about to, say, the matches are thus. The first match will be Neji Hyuga vs Naruto Uzumaki, second match, Sasuke Uchiha vs Shino Aburame, third match Temari vs Shikamaru, Nara, and the fourth and fifth matches will be Rock Lee vs Gaara, then, the winner will fight Kankuro. After the first fights, the winners will fight each, other and so on until the final fight. Understand? Oh, and before I forget the rules are, the same as before, Hayate finished. They all nodded, the rules and lineup were simple to remember. Good. Neji and Naruto, stay. The rest of you, head back up. Everyone but Naruto and Neji headed up the stairs to the balcony, where they would watch the matches from. The first round will be Naruto Uzumaki vs Neji Hyuga. Hayate announced without coughing for once. Begin. Naruto and Neji just stood there, neither making a move to attack. So Neji, are you going to come? Or is the great prodigy of the Hyuga clan scared of the outcast of the village? Didn't you just say you would win this match? Or perhaps you were all talk and nothing else? Neji began to grind his teeth. He couldn't understand how Naruto could get under his skin so easily. Neji charged Naruto, striking at Naruto several times in rapid succession. Naruto blocked them all, but he made it seem like he was only just able to block Neji's attacks. This continued for about a minute until Naruto let Neji get a hit on him. Neji hit Naruto's right shoulder with a palm strike, but it didn't seem to affect Naruto all too much. Neji was irritated, Naruto was grinning the entire time, even when he was hit. Naruto jumped back and made a hand sign, creating 4 clones that attacked Neji. Neji blocked their kicks and punches. 8 trigrams palms heavenly spin. Neji exclaimed. The 4 clones disappeared into clouds of smoke. The ninja in the crowd were amazed that Naruto and Neji knew such high-level jutsu. They had preformed both of their jutsu effortlessly. Naruto and Neji stood apart once more. Well, so you do know something more than palm strikes. Of course I do. I am the prodigy of the Hyuga clan, even if I am only a branch member, Neji replied. His tone was filled with arrogance and self-reassurance. Neji watched as Naruto took up a gentle fist stance. Sloppy as it was still the same stance. Neji found that highly insulting. Neji charged Naruto and the two began to move around the arena at a fast pace. Naruto was simply blocking Neji's attacks as they fought. To some in the spectator seats, it was completely obvious that Naruto was just playing around with Neji. Neji struck at random now, he was getting angry that he couldn't land another hit. Palm strike after palm strike was just knocked away by Naruto, the grin on his face never faltering for a moment. Is this all you have, Neji? Is this all the great Hyuga prodigy has to offer? Naruto asked as they fought once more. 8 trigrams palms heavenly spin. Neji exclaimed. The jutsu knocked Naruto to the ground. Just as Neji was about to talk, Naruto popped into a cloud of smoke. He had been fighting a shadow clone. Neji began to look everywhere with his Byakugan. Even the people in the stands had no idea where he was. Suddenly, everyone heard clapping. They looked above the Hokage's box to see Naruto sitting there with an amused look on his face. Naruto jumped back down into the arena. Shall we continue our little dance? Naruto asked. With Hinata was watching the match. She was concerned about Naruto more than her cousin. Not for the fact he might lose, but for the fact she always worried about him, regardless. She was trying to keep her heart rate down, but it wasn't that easy. Hinata watched as they continued their match after Naruto's little disappearing act. Neji right now was just trying to hit Naruto, but every time he sped up so did Naruto. She noticed they were talking as they fought. In the arena Naruto ducked under a palm strike, then sidestepped another. So what if you have a seal? It's not like you're the only one in this arena who has one. Except I don't use mine as an excuse to act like a complete asshole, Naruto said as he jumped back. You're just as worthless as my cousin. Neji shot back. Naruto just stood there, his head pointed at the ground. You could feel the killer intent throughout the arena. Neji was thrown back by the killer intent Naruto was releasing, it was almost like during the prelims. Neji jumped back. Suddenly, Naruto disappeared from sight. He appeared in front of Neji. Futon, Detappa. Wind release, great breakthrough. Neji had no time to react, he was blown clear across the arena by the massive gust of wind. Hayate was even blown off his feet. He had experienced this technique before, but never one this powerful. Get up! Naruto yelled. I had just planned on beating you and nothing more. But now I plan on destroying you in this match. Neji was finally on his feet again. He couldn't understand it. Where did that power come from? Naruto was just barely defending himself 1 minute and tripling his speed the next. Neji furiously charged at Naruto, but stopped when Naruto created a somewhat familiar jutsu. Are you hesitating, Neji, just because I created a Rasengan? Naruto rushed Neji, he closed the gap quickly between them. Naruto thrust the Rasengan at Neji, who barely managed to avoid it. Naruto followed up by kicking Neji in the gut before he could react. Neji flew a few yards into the air before hitting the ground and sliding to a stop. He then stood up again and took his stance. Naruto flew through hand signs, wind release, dragon fists. Naruto exclaimed. The head of a dragon formed on each of Naruto's fists. They were composed entirely out of wind-enhanced chakra. This is a jutsu I made myself, while I was training with Pervy Sage. He doesn't even know that it exists along with a few others. In the Hokage's box, that is quite the interesting jutsu. Yes it is, Hiruzen replied to the Kazekage statement. What rank would you put it at? Well, I'm not sure. We will have to wait and see what type of destructive power it has before we can make that call, he replied. Agreed, but if it's as destructive as I think it is, it will probably be BA ranked. They watched as Naruto charged Neji once again with this new and rather interesting jutsu. In the arena, 8 trigrams palms heavenly spin. Neji exclaimed. Naruto slammed one of his dragon fists into the chakra dome. He ripped through the dome and sent Neji flying into the arena wall. Naruto ran at Neji and followed up with the second fist. Neji barely jumped out of the way. The impact from the fist created a hole clean through the arena wall. If the jutsu had actually hit, it would have probably killed Neji. Some of the jounin in the audience were amazed by the power of the jutsu. It had beaten one of the Hyuga's ultimate defenses. The other people in the audience were terrified of the power that Naruto wielded. However, the Hyuga elders were not happy that Naruto had beaten one of their most prized moves so easily. Naruto turned around slowly to see Neji was getting to his feet again. Neji was slowly and shakily getting to his feet. He looked at Naruto, who had a murderous look in his eyes. Neji suddenly started coughing up blood onto the ground. The attack that had ripped through his jutsu had done more damage than he thought. His ribs ached terribly right now. Naruto walked over to Neji slowly. He had been destroying Neji just like he said he would. Neji struck at Naruto only for Naruto to grab him by the wrist. Naruto swung Neji around like a rag doll before throwing him into the arena wall. When Neji hit the wall, blood shot out of his mouth. He had hit the wall with such force he cracked it. Naruto walked over to Neji and stood in front of him. Why did you miss with your last jutsu? Neji asked as he coughed up some blood. Because Hinata asked me not to kill you, so I missed on purpose. You were just toying with me from the beginning? I was. Naruto said as he turned and began to walk away. He stopped and said a few parting words. Hinata was right. You really are pathetic right now. Oh, and one last thing, if you ever touch her again I'll kill you. Neji passed out against the wall a few seconds after Naruto had finished talking. Heiei appeared next to Neji and checked his pulse. He was still alive. Winner, Naruto Uzumaki. There was no cheering from the crowd, just silence. Naruto was expecting this. He really didn't care about their approval right now. The killer intent was still leaking off him until he looked up in the stands. He looked up at Hinata for a moment before disappearing from the arena floor in a swirl of leaves. Medics rushed out to check on Neji's condition. While they were clearing Neji off the arena floor, they did a quick medical scan of him. He had several broken ribs, a shattered right forearm, and his left leg was broken. Naruto had done quite a number on Neji. In the stands, Hinata's heart was starting to finally act up on her. The match had got her heart beating far too fast and she was feeling it now. She coughed up some blood into her hands, which got Kurenai's attention. Alright Hinata, it's time we got you back to the hospital. Kurenai hadn't wanted Hinata here, she knew it would aggravate her condition. But Hinata wanted to be here for this match at the very least. The medic performed a few head seals and his hand began to glow. He put his hand over the area where Hinata's heart was. Yes, it's best we get her back now. Her heart is beating far too fast right now, he stated. Kurenai picked Hinata up and promptly left the stadium for the hospital. Sakura, have you ever seen Naruto like that before? Ino asked. You mean that merciless? No, I can't say I have. I'm just glad I didn't have to fight him, Kiba said, adding to the conversation. Got that right. I don't think Neji will be getting out of hospital for quite some time. Choji said as he munched on some chips. How did the match go? Oh, Haku-kun, you finally made it. Ino replied happily. Yeah, I apologize for that. I just had other things I had to take care of first, Haku replied as he sat down next to Ino. Haku looked at the field and the rather large hole in the arena wall. Did Naruto do that? Haku asked. Yeah, he did it with a jutsu called Dragon Fists, if I heard right, Kiba replied. Haku just nodded in reply to what Kiba had said. A few of the jounin were conversing about the match that had just ended. So, Kakashi, what did you think of the match and young Naruto's rather powerful jutsu? Guy asked. Well, I think Neji got what he deserved, to be honest. About Naruto's jutsu, I think it is rather creative and powerful, and I doubt we've seen all of them, he replied. It saddens me to say this, but I have to agree with you about Neji. Maybe now he will get off his high horse, Guy replied. I hope you told Lee to not go overboard with his match, considering what may or may not happen. Of course. I told him if he can't win with taking off his weights, he would have to forfeit. How did he take it? Not that well, but that's to be expected. Agreed. They all turned their attention to the next match that was being called out. In the arena, the next match is Sasuke Uchiha vs Shino Aburame. Hey-8 announced. They both jumped down into the arena. Neither of them had talked to Naruto yet, even though they had the chance. The two took their places in the center of the arena, waiting for Hey-8 to give the word to start. Begin. Hey-8 announced. Sasuke was the first one to make a move. He took out a kunai and rushed Shino. Seeing this, Shino did the same. Shino knew he wouldn't be able to beat Sasuke in this sort of combat, but he trained hard over the past month in his taijutsu. Their kunai clashed, Shino ducked under a kick from Sasuke, then retaliated with his kunai slashing at Sasuke's arm. Sasuke quickly moved to the side to avoid the strike. He's fast, Shino thought to himself. Of course, Shino knew Sasuke was fast, but he was much faster than he had expected. Shino noticed Sasuke didn't have his Sharingan activated. Shino had yet to release his bugs, he knew Sasuke would notice if he did. Shino wasn't about to needlessly waste his bugs. They continued what looked to be a glorified sparring match. Shino was barely able to keep up with Sasuke's attacks. Shino realized Sasuke was saving his energy for his fight with Naruto. Sasuke suddenly sped up and kicked Shino in the gut, sending him flying through the air. Shino recovered in mid and landed on his feet. Shino jumped back a few yards to get some distance between himself and Sasuke. Shino knew from the start he would most likely lose this match. But no point in giving up without a fight, right? Well, Sasuke, I didn't expect to win this match and I have a feeling you're saving your energy for a certain fight. Am I right? Indeed I am. Very well then. How about we end this with a little flair? I'm game. Shino began to release a massive swarm of bugs. They came out from all the openings in his overcoat. The swarm that came out looked almost like an enraged beehive that someone had accidentally bumped up against. Shino motioned his hand, and the swarm barreled down on Sasuke. Sasuke ran through hand signs, Katan, Gakakyu no Jutsu. Fire style, Fireball Jutsu, the fireball ripped through Shino's swarm of beetles, burning them to nothing. The fireball went straight for Shino, engulfing him in flames. The flames died down, revealing a few boulders in place of where Shino once stood. Shino had switched place with some of the debris from Naruto's match to avoid the flames. "Well, Sasuke, I concede, I am no match for your speed, and my bugs are no match for your flames. Did I hear that right?" "You're forfeiting, Shino?" Hayate asked. "Indeed. Winner, Sasuke Uchiha," Hayate announced. Sasuke and Shino walked out of the arena towards where the other genin were. Cheers came from the stands at the announcement of the winner of the fight. Sasuke and Shino had finally arrived at the waiting box with the other genin. Shino was going to have a short chat with Naruto before heading to the spectator stands. Shino looked around and noticed Naruto was standing all by himself far away from everyone else. Shino walked over to Naruto and stood next him. "So how did it feel to get back at Neji for what he did?" Shino asked. Naruto let a long drawn-out sigh. "It wasn't as satisfying as I thought it would be. Sure, I beat the hell out of him, but it didn't make me feel any better." "I see. I suppose that's to be expected. Well, I must be going. I lost my match. I'll watch what remains of this exam from the stands." Later Shino. The third match was coming. Shikamaru looked at Temari. She had been acting strangely all day. Temari looked as if she was contemplating something. He hadn't bothered asking her, figuring it was none of his business. The third match was finally called, bringing Shikamaru out of his thoughts about Temari's behavior. Shikamaru jumped off the side of the railing and into the arena. Temari did the same. The two stood apart, waiting for the signal to begin. Temari readied her fan while Shikamaru just stood there. "Begin!" Hayate shouted. Temari swung her fan hard, creating a few blades of wind. Shikamaru knew now was the time to run for his life. He noticed she had an angry/sad expression on her face. He couldn't understand why though. But the look on her face didn't stop him from running as fast as he could from the blades of wind she was creating with her fan. This rather comical scene of Shikamaru running and dodging from left to right went on for a few more minutes. He had inched closer as he had been running, trying to get close enough to use his shadow possession jutsu. Temari didn't notice it, however, her mind was elsewhere at the moment. She was upset. She had never liked a boy before, and now she found one she enjoyed hanging out with very much. But, of course, he had to be from a different village, and one her village was about to attack. Temari then noticed that Shikamaru's shadow possession jutsu was about to get her. She jumped back to avoid getting ensnared, and berated herself for getting so badly distracted. "I have to stop distracting myself. I have to focus on what I'm doing," she thought. Shikamaru ran to the little grove of trees in the arena to avoid Temari's wind blades. "Well, this sucks. She's obviously distracted and pissed off." Shikamaru sat there for a moment, trying to think if it was something he had done. He really couldn't think of anything, though. He looked around at the debris left from Naruto's battle. "That might work," he muttered to himself. He only had to lure Temari into that area of the arena, and he might be able to win. Shikamaru sat behind the tree running through scenarios of how he was going to pull this off. Temari just stood there, contemplating what the hell he was doing. What the hell is he up to? I know he doesn't just do things for absolutely no reason, she thought to herself. One of the very reasons she liked him was because he was extremely intelligent. Albeit the laziest person she had ever met, but also the smartest. The trade-off was interesting to say the least. Although the match was the furthest thing from her mind. The most prevalent thought in her mind right now was what was she going to do when the invasion started? That was her biggest concern right now. She finally snapped out of her thought-induced daze, when she realized Shikamaru was halfway between her and that tree he was hiding behind. I really need to stop spacing out like that, she thought. She jumped out of the range of his jutsu. Shikamaru mentally smirked, he was getting her to go in the right direction. He jumped to the side to avoid a few blades of wind Temari sent his way. Shikamaru performed his jutsu once again. Of course, it missed because she dodged. Then he did it once more, but this time, he connected his shadow to the debris. In the matter of seconds, his shadow had stretched throughout all of the debris on the field. "Got you," he muttered. "Damn it. Why didn't I even think about this?" she berated herself. She was caught in his jutsu now. It came too quickly that time, and she couldn't react properly. Everyone thought Shikamaru was about to win, when he spoke up. "Well, I give up. This whole thing is far too troublesome," he stated. "Wait, what? You're giving up? But you won." Hayate stated. "Technically, no, I didn't," he said as he released his jutsu. "I couldn't have won seeing as I'm out of chakra. Before I could even get close enough to her to do anything, would have run out." Hayate stared at Shikamaru for a minute before calling the match. "Well, alright then. Winner, Temari." Shikamaru began to walk out of the arena when he felt some killer intent coming from behind him. He turned around to see Temari's fan flying at his face. He barely managed to duck under the fan. "You bastard," she screamed. She was furious. Temari loved to win, that was for certain, but winning like this made her look like a fool. "Get your butt back here and let's have a rematch now." Well you see. Well, I have to be somewhere, and that somewhere is anywhere but here at the moment." Shikamaru hightailed it out of the arena. "Get back here." Temari ran after him, grabbing her fan on the way out. In the stands, "I like her," Yoshino Nara said to her husband Shikaku Nara. "Of course you would, she's just like you," Shikaku muttered under his breath. "What was that?" she asked sweetly, but with sinister intentions. "Nothing my dear, nothing at all," he replied with a sweat drop. "I thought so." Shikamaru had yet to tell his parents he and Temari had actually been seeing each other the past month. Although from that reaction she gave they could easily tell she was the girl Shikamaru had been seeing. "With Shikamaru and Temari, you didn't have to hit me so hard," Shikamaru muttered as he rubbed his head. Temari had caught him on the stairs and smacked him upside the head with her fan. Shikamaru was now sporting a rather large bump on his head. "Yes I did. Now stop whining about it." They walked out of the stairwell to see the other genin waiting around for the next match to be called. Lee was looking all fired up and Gaara was looking, well, like Gaara. He was just staring impassively off into space. Temari looked over to the Hokage's box to see the Kazekage giving a small gesture. Of course, no one noticed it as something odd, as he only fixed his hat slightly. That was the gesture that meant for everyone to hold their position until his order. They were supposed to move during Gaara's first match, but now that was not the case. The second to last match of the first round was finally called. Lee and Gaara made their way down to the arena floor. Lee jumped off the railing while Gaara took his time and walked down the stairs. They both stood in the arena, waiting for the proctor to begin the match. "Let's have a youthful battle," Lee shouted excitedly. The proctor's sweat dropped and Gaara just stood there impassively, doing and saying nothing. Definitely Guy's student. Hayate thought. The cork popped off Gaara's gourd in anticipation of the fight. "Begin," Hayate announced. Lee charged Gaara as soon as Hayate called for them to start. He rushed in and did a jump kick, only for sand to come out of the gourd and block his attack. He jumped back when the sand seemingly tried to grab hold of him. Gaara stood there the entire time, arms crossed. "I hope that's not all you have." "I didn't get to kill last time," Gaara said darkly. Lee was wondering about how Gaara was able to use sand like that without moving. He charged in again, throwing punches and kicks at the sand, but it blocked everything so easily. The sand came at Lee from both sides, and he was forced to jump back. The sand followed him and tried to grab him. Lee took out 2 kunai and threw them at Gaara's head, only for them to be stopped by sand. "Is this all you have?" Gaara asked in an annoyed tone. Lee looked down at his leg warmers. "I need to take my weights off." What Lee wasn't seeing was the sand creeping closer to him. The sand came to life and struck out at him. He jumped, only for it to grab him by the arm and throw him into the arena wall. Lee recovered before hitting the wall, and stuck to it using the little bit of chakra he was able to use. "I'll show you what I can do." Lee pulled down his leg warmers to reveal weights on both of his legs. Lee pulled off his weights and dropped them to the ground. They hit the ground making small craters. The crowd's eyes widened. The weights must have weighed a ton to make craters from 30 feet off the ground. Lee grinned, then disappeared from the wall. He moved so fast, barely anyone's eyes could keep up. He struck at Gaara's sand, being too fast for it to follow his movements. The only time he knew where Lee was when he struck at the sand. Lee seemed to almost teleport around Gaara, hitting the sand. People were astonished by Lee's speed. Lee sped up some more and managed to hit Gaara, sending him through the air, although Gaara's sand cushioned his impact to the ground. Suddenly, the ground seemingly came to life, and threw Lee into the arena wall. This time, he didn't have the chance to recover. Before he hit ground or was able to recover, the sand hit him again, smashing him into the wall. He finally fell off the wall. Lee got off the ground. That hit had hurt him pretty badly. He had a little trouble standing. "I won't end it like this." Gaara was wondering what Lee was going to do next, when he could feel a surge of power come from Lee. Lee had said something but he didn't catch it. Third gate, Gate of Life open. Lee's skin had turned red. The ninja in the crowd were amazed to see that a genin knew that technique. The ground crumbled underneath him as he launched himself towards Gaara. He hit Gaara, sending him flying across the arena. Lee wasn't sure how long he could keep this up, his body was in bad shape. Before Gaara hit the wall, Lee knocked him into the air. Lee batted Gaara around the arena a few times. He kicked Gaara towards the center of the arena, then kicked him straight up into the air. This entire time, Gaara's sand was unable to keep up with Gaara and Lee. Lee did one final axe kick, sending Gaara to the ground like a meteorite falling from the sky. Lee fell to the ground. He couldn't move his body anymore. Lee hit the ground and didn't move. Hayate looked at the crater Gaara had made with his body, and Lee, who wasn't moving, but seemed to be breathing. "Well, it seems like it will come down to who can stand." Hayate muttered to himself. Hayate began to see movement from the crater Gaara was in. He looked over at Lee. It didn't seem like he would be moving anytime soon. Gaara stood at the edge of the crater with a murderous look on his face. Gaara winner by incapacitation. "No. He's not dead yet," Gaara said in a bloodthirsty tone. Gaara moved his sand in the direction of Lee, but stopped when a voice came from the Hokage booth. "That's enough, Gaara." The Kazekage's voice rang throughout the arena. Gaara's sand returned to his gourd. Guy appeared next to Lee and picked him up. He sighed. "I told you not to do that, didn't I?" Lee coughed. "Sorry Guy-sensei. I could not leave it as it was. I'll let you off this time, but once you're better, you will train harder." Lee smiled weakly. "Yes Guy-sensei," Lee said, trying to muster what remained of his energy. Guy took Lee off to the medical bay, not bothering to wait for the medics to come. Next match Gaara vs Kan. Hayate was interrupted. I think I would like to forfeit my match," Kankuro shouted down to Hayate. "Well, I don't blame him, that Gaara kid's insane," Hayate muttered to himself. "Well then I guess we will be getting straight to the semi-finals. Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke Uchiha, please enter the ring," Hayate announced. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button and subscribe for more content. Support the original author by clicking their profile link in the pinned comment of the first video of this series. They deserve the love. Want early access and exclusive content? Join my Patreon community, link below. Your support fuels these videos. Drop a comment with your thoughts, and I'll catch you in the next video. Stay entertained, stay safe.